As chair of this meeting, I need to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. School committee members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Elizabeth Delgado,
Yes.
Mary Bramley,
Yes.
Hillary Griffiths,
Yes.
Laura Elkin. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Colleen Andrade,
Yes.
Brian Haas,
Yes.
Charles Duran.
Yes.
This one. There we go. All right. Wayne, can you hear us okay?
I can, thank you.
You can hear.
Yes.
Yeah. This open meeting of the school committee is being conducted as a hybrid meeting as allowed by chapter 2 of the Act of 2023, signed into law by March 9th, 2023. This act continues to exempt certain provisions under the open meeting law regarding remote meetings and public access until March 31st, 2025. This meeting is convened via Zoom and in person as posted on the district's website. Accordingly, be aware that other folks may be able to see you, take care not to screen share your screen. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording, which is audible to by the public. If you're planning to record or broadcast this meeting, please use the raise your hand function now to notify the chair as required by law. Seeing none, meeting materials. Along with the agenda, most of tonight's meeting materials are available on the Maynard Public School website in the folder titled 2023-2024 agendas under the tab School Committee. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda and documents when the chair knows otherwise. Public comments. The public comments agenda is a devoted time for the school committee to hear from the public. As such, its structure primarily supports a unidirectional recording of public comments rather than a bi-directional conversation. Here are the general rules for any form of public comment period. Any person wishing to speak and make a comment during a virtual meeting may do so by signing up to speak publicly in advance up until the public comment agenda item on at the website link provided. Please have your Zoom link matched so we're able to unmute your speak. All public comments are limited to 3 minutes to ensure that everyone who wishes to comment has the opportunity to be heard. No person may comment more than once without permission of the chair. As time allows, the chair could consider allowing the person to comment a second time, especially if it is related to a topic that has not yet been brought up. Emails in advance and up to the public comment agenda item to SC meeting at maynard.k12.madu.us. You must find public comments and include your first and last name and town to ensure your comment can be read. Comments read by the chair will only be read for 3 minutes. If the submitted comments are longer, they will be cut off at the 3-minute mark. To ensure all comments are read in their entirety, it is suggested that you keep them to approximately 350 words. However, submitted comments longer than 350 words will be included in the public comment in the public record in their entirety. Note that anyone submitting comments for the public reported after the public comment agenda item is passed may provide an email to comments for SC meeting at maynard.k12.madu.us up until the end of the meeting. Specifically stating that the desire to add additional comments. Ground rules, or move on to the first agenda item. Permit me to cover some ground rules for clear and effective conduct of our meeting. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will ask each member if they have any comments, questions, or motions they would like to make. I will go to the members for additional comments or questions if time allows. Please hold off speaking until your name is called and remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. If members wish to engage with other members, please do so through the chair and take care not to interrupt anyone who is speaking. Finally, each vote taken tonight will be conducted via a roll call. Before we move on to the first item of the agenda, we call to order at 7:05. Hillary Griffith.
Yes.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Elmore. Laura Hogan.
Yeah.
Natasha Rivera. Yes. All right. Citizens comments or public comments? Sorry.
We do have one public comment. And he is in the Mr. Ned Green.
Hi, Ned,
Hello, can you hear me?
state your name and your address, please.
My name is Ned Green, legally Edward Green, but Ned Green. I live on 33 Thompson Street. Sorry, I couldn't be there tonight.
That's okay. Do you have a public comment for us?
I do. I have two children, one entering 6th grade and one starting 4th grade. Currently, 6th graders at Fowler have had their recess taken away. This was a problem 8 years ago when we first moved to Maynard, and it saddens me that promises about restoring a recess for 6th graders have not been kept. Eliminating recess for young children is universally regarded as poor pedagogy. It is the most important class time for our young students. Most studies show that students learned and test best with between 1 and 2 hours of recess daily, double or even triple the amount of time to be spent on reading and math. Maynard teachers have also been taking away recess as punishment. There is zero evidence that this is good practice. As a public high school teacher myself, I understand classroom frustrations, but this does not excuse this abhorrent practice. I have also discovered that 4th and 5th grade students who perform in the chorus are punished and have their recess taken away as well. Not a single member of my Framingham State Education Department, nor a single member of the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education recommends fewer than 30 minutes of recess for kindergarten through 6th grade students. Anthony Pellegrini, the famed professor of education psychology at the University of Minnesota, has stated, "There is no theory nor empirical evidence to support the point of view that recess time could be otherwise more efficiently spent. None. The counter argument that recess is good is backed by a large body of theory and empirical research. I look forward to working with the Maynard schools and restoring recess for all. It is in the most important minutes of our children's education." Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback, and Brian, I'll do that as a takeaway to follow up. Superintendent Haas will follow up on that matter for you. Anyone else? Any other public comments?
Nothing in the email.
Moving on to urgent business. Anything?
No urgent business.
And now moving on to the superintendent report.
So it's been a really an exciting and a busy summer on so many levels. If I go sort of back and think about what's been happening in terms of facilities, grounds, technology, and so much has happened for it's really just 2 months. At Good Meadow, they've been installing playground equipment. Outside playground, some of and it looks like mulch, but it's not. It's a rubber material that's being replaced in areas where erosion has happened. Fowler, if you recall, at the end of last year, there were several rooms, thank you, several classrooms where the tiles, the adhesive that held them down had given out, so all of the rooms have been retiled. There's been a lot of work on the HVAC system, and we're still in the building, the Fowler building. And there will soon be a new VDA communication system installed in the Fowler building, which connects to the fire and police communication system. And it's a
At Green Meadow and high school also, or?
they don't need it there because the communication
Okay.
lines like works there, but for some reason it does not work there. It just improves the communication. Or was strip sanded and been finished. The shot clock cage has been installed. Again, rooftop units, HVAC, has been, the condensers and evaporative coils have been cleaned. What else? Specific custodians on HVAC maintenance board. As we notice, the grounds around our campus, the grass has been cut, and there used to be, and I don't know if we even remember, but if you walked in Fowler or different areas, because of the moisture and much of the building looked like it had black, just gum on it. It's been power washed, and the buildings are fabulous. The interior courtyards at Fowler and at Green Meadow have been landscaped, so the building inside and outside have been cleaned and deployed that. So really a thumbs up to our facilities and custodian crew. It's convenient and they have not missed a beat. They get all credit for that. I happened to be in Green Meadow this morning and walking those halls. They are shining. It's amazing how hard they work to keep the building that old, that pristine condition. Thumbs up to all of our meetings, custodians, facilities. A lot of work around technology has been done over the summer. We added some interactive panels to Fowler. We replaced outdated 200 outdated Chromebooks for 5th and 9th graders. We purchased 100 additional Chromebooks from a grant that we received. Have worked just really hard at making sure that we added technology where we need it. For example, we added a Verizon connection to the field house so that there's internet access out toward the game, which is always been especially when you want to host postseason games and tickets now are only bought online. I love MIA for this thing, and it is fine as long as you have connectivity out there.
So can I quickly emphasize that? So Wi-Fi and program online is
And the field,
actually pass.
Yes.
Awesome.
I know you're very excited.
No, it's one of the things about I'm glad. And so it's good to hear that, you know, that has heard and speaking for us. Thank you.
So district features, we're going to discuss that a little further today. The committee, I think, just sort of leaving that there's been a subcommittee of our fields committee. Several people from the town and the school side of the community focused on the bleachers, and there's a recommendation coming tonight. Well, we had multiple leadership meetings this summer. We actually had we had a couple of them this week, and they have been really, really successful. Lots of really good, deep conversation about teaching and learning. Just really well, and what do we want to do better? So it's our opening day convocation will be at the high school this year. So I mentioned HTHC, one of our HTHC is at the Fowler School, at least in the auditorium, which isn't used daily for students by any means, but it would be where we would be hosting the day. And the Maynard High School has a beautiful auditorium, cafeteria, and so we will be opening school there this year. We're very excited. So we have been working and talking about the Green Meadow building project, and that's actually going to be a focus tonight for a presentation. So I'm not going to steal the thunder of that group specifically. Bill Homewood from Colliers and joining us tonight to go over that presentation. But I do want to tell you that we've really been working on outreach, and we're going to see some citizens and share this story as well. And there are many informal and formal attendance next. Get the word out. Town meeting will be October 10th. Should probably heard about many times. So this was just a quick slide on goals, which we just spent the last couple hours fleshing out goals for the superintendent, and there's a goal around inclusion, connected to diversity, equity, and inclusion, a goal around literacy and math curriculum, a goal around the Green Meadow building project and community. We're excited, so we hit every area that's important to us, and they work to make us a better district. I will say, I will be free of, there will be several presentations, so I need you to tune in, gonna get busy.
Thank you very much. And I know we'll on the agenda to talk about this touched on it as well. Moving on, next we have the Maynard High School student. Well, school board, if you want to speak to anything particular or. Yes,
If it's okay, I'll just go over the major changes.
absolutely. Here's our mic. Wanna just stand right close there, that would be.
Excellent, and I will project.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So the entire handbook has been updated and formatted. Anyone who's a handbook fan has been looking at it over the years. Notice that some of your policies, some of the state laws were in there twice, a couple were there 3 times, because people copied and pasted through the ages, as happens, and I've been guilty of that myself. It was time for a fresh set of eyes to take a look, and I want to thank Olga Doktorov, Dana McPhee, our school council, and our amazing student advisory committee, all of whom read through page by page, came with notes, had homework every week, and really helped us find those redundancies, things that didn't make sense. So it was very much a team effort. We had updated our academic requirements to meet the, to match your current votes on what our academic requirements should be for Maynard High School graduation. And I think the most interesting change is our student-driven change. Last year, I came to you with the results of our civic action project on dress code, which happened right before I arrived. This year, I arrived to you with the results of our civic action project on homework. And second try is the charm, because 2 years ago, one of Mr. Ferrante's classes took this on as a civics action project, brought it to the faculty, and did not get a majority vote to go forward. But this year, I think we got the ball rolling early. The student advisory committee was very committed to getting some changes on homework or some clarity on homework. And so what was put forward by the juniors, backed by many students, was this new change that the number of hours of homework or minutes of homework will stay at 20 to 40 minutes each evening. But now there's the clarity around 3 per week. And the teachers are going to work to communicate with each other about which departments are doing when. We're going to try this as a pilot for 2023, 2024. And then we're going to check in as a faculty at the halfway point and see if we need to tweak our pilot, and then take a final at the end of the year to see if this is working. The students get a lot of credit, and Mr. Paterno gets a lot of credit. They reviewed handbook policies from all around the state. They did research the psychology of, but they also very much learned how important homework is. And that independent practice is an important part of learning. It is actually one of the most effective ways to learn. Try it alone. It's just when it's too much, too many, that's when families become overloaded, and then you start to hear about it, I start to hear about it. And of course, AP classes, college classes are accepted from this. Some weeks our AP classes will need to have homework every night. Other weeks they may be working on a project or reading. I think you know on page 29 about the change that had to be made to all state handbooks around considering mediation, restorative practices, and other alternatives to suspension. In addition to changing our handbook, Mrs. Doctorow and I have really put our time where this is concerned this summer. I'm now trained in restorative practices. And Ms. Doctorow is now a fully trained peer mediator. So we have learned a lot about practices that make a community out of a high school. And we're going to be calling this sort of restorative community year one. Some of the teachers have taken one tier of the training. A couple of teachers have taken 2 tiers. I would love to talk more at a future meeting about restorative practices in a high school, the psychology behind that, and what it really is as far as changing practices. We will not be having a full restorative justice model this year. We are just in our first year. We would need many, many more staff trained. We would all need to know more about changing discipline completely. And quite frankly, I have some safety concerns about a model that does not include progressive discipline as well. So I want to learn, I want to talk more with district administration. And this year we will be trying restorative practices in our classrooms, in our meetings, in our hallways, as opposed to transitioning to restorative justice. So I want to make that very clear. And finally, speaking of restorative language, our behavioral chart on pages 36 to 39. Again, those groups, Student Advisory Committee, School Council, Dana McPhee, all looked carefully through that entire chart, made recommendations to me, and we rewrote it. And instead of saying thou shalt not throw things, it now says throwing things is unsafe in a public high school. Here are the reasons why. So I don't know if you have any questions, but I hope you will vote to let us have our handbook for this year, knowing that we will be open and honest with you about what is working.
Thank you very much. I will just go around the school committee if anyone has questions or feedback for you. Hillary, do you have any?
Hi. First of all, thank you for projecting. I heard everything you said, which was wonderful. And I'm really excited to hear about the homework change and how that plays out. And I'm so excited about the move towards restorative justice and hope we can hear more as time goes on that. A quick question is the breathalyzer section, are those breathalyzers that the school has, or are they the police's breathalyzers?
They are the Maynard Police Department's breathalyzers.
Okay. And then in the section about the class dues and needing to pay in order to graduate and for the prom, is there exceptions made if a child truly can't pay, or if, so that they're not with those activities aren't withheld for true inability to pay?
Every year.
Okay. In future editions, could that maybe be added just so that families know? And then I have concerns with the CRA portion. I feel like filing a child requiring assistance in the court system isn't the most evidence-based way of addressing attendance issues, and neglects some of the link between the educational outcomes and the factors like socioeconomic status, family dynamics, mental health. And instead of addressing the root cause, it can alienate families, stigmatize the child, and criminalize like social issues instead of criminal behavior, and can inadvertently contribute to the school to prison pipeline and start a cycle of legal trouble. Is there any potential for that to be modified as the year goes on to try to come up to make that less of a go-to?
At the high school level, that is a go-to, because we have so many other tools in our toolbox. Rather than being a go-to, that is a last resort. And I think everyone will be relieved to know that the CRA model is in no way criminal in Massachusetts. In Massachusetts, there are several diversionary before a judge even becomes involved. And the judge is there only to order services. There is no criminal component and there is no record on the juveniles. And
I still have concerns about the way it's written in the policy, making it seem like it's one of the, it makes it seem like it's a go-to source. And it's, even if Massachusetts is better than a lot of states, it's still not a great thing for a kid to get involved in. Similarly, the sentence that says the school resource officer is a school staff member who may be consulted on many behavioral matters is a little bit concerning to me because it can involve an officer in typical school related discipline matters instead of the school staff or the counselors. And it's also vague. And when I shared that statement with a couple of folks, they felt like it was really open to interpretation and could be concerning. It's also not super consistent with the MOU between the PD and the schools with regards to the school resource officer. The MOU that was created between DESE, the Attorney General's office, the District Attorney's office, and the MPTC, based on all the research, says that the only behavior that a SRO should be involved with is conduct that's physically dangerous, willful, and malicious destruction of property and theft. And so making that statement really vague could sort of suggest that we're not totally in compliance with that MOU.
Wait, can I follow up on your feedback and question for a moment? Is there a possibility, just hearing some of those thoughts, that the language from the MO just be pasted, just so that there is uniformity across, there's no understanding that this SRO?
of course,
I
we
don't
can
know.
make that change to that sentence.
Yeah, that would be.
I think that was out here getting at the consistency in the language with
And potentially that if they're getting involved in day-to-day behavior, like a lot of the things in that behavior chart, like respect and things like that, those aren't really consistent with the MOU. So it could like start a sort of slippery slope if those boundaries aren't
So
clear.
as we suggest that copying that information from the MOU and then putting that into that I think that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
If
And
you
then the
want
last, oh, sorry.
to do that one change,
Okay.
I will use language from the MOU to replace that sentence, which is vague.
Or just to conform, yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to happen. I know you need to get this approved and out to students, so it doesn't have to happen right now. But, and then the last really quick thing is in the section about the McKinney-Vento law, I know Green Meadow struggled with the part of that law that involves admitting students without all the documentation if they're homeless. Would it be possible to consider adding some of that information to the handbook next year?
For the high school?
I don't know
Yeah.
what information you mean. We follow the law to the letter in the school.
Just so people know about it. And to make it was missed at Green Meadow, and so just if it's in more places, it could be less likely to get missed. Like the whole idea that that a student doesn't need all the traditional documentation to enroll if they're homeless or in foster care.
Certainly, we can put more language from the law.
We can refer to the policy.
We can refer to the policy. Okay, so yeah, that's a very good point. So the policy, I think it's just, again, getting back to consistency, right? And that having policy is in practice as well. And also maybe there's a training.
All our secretaries
Thank you, though.
are aware of the rules. I don't know that years ago.
I'm excellent about it. Very welcoming.
Anything else?
Nope, that's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right, Mary?
Yeah, thank you very much, Liz. I really appreciate,
Let me see.
oh, wait a minute, sorry. Moving mouse. Thanks. Thank you for updating the physical education and the fine arts requirement, because we had been talking about that when we updated the academic requirements. The one that hasn't seemed to make it yet, and it doesn't need to be right now, but we had one about civics, about completing a civics action project. And I know they're doing it, but it just wasn't listed as one of the the academic requirements. I can
That can
send
be
you-
fixed.
Yeah, I can send you actually the language, because it went back to 2020 to 2021 school year, so I'm not sure why it hasn't made it onto this yet. But the fact that you're doing it is great, but I'll send you this page of just, of what the language
I can
was.
use the policy.
Perfect, perfect, that would be great. And then just a question about the language on page 29. It doesn't refer anywhere here about the parent involvement. It just talks about the student, how are the parents involved?
In a matter that might be considered for suspension,
Or just to incorporate them into actually alternative remedies? I mean, is this all just about the student, or are the parents also invited to be part and parcel of this, alternatives?
that paragraph was sent to us by DESI
Okay,
and the state legislature after it was approved. So that is just the principal's responsibility. In the pages that follow, I can find them.
oh, that's okay. That's all right.
Where suspension is discussed, the order of things is gone over when we contact the parent and how the parent must be alerted and consulted before any decisions are made,
Excellent.
and always has a chance to advocate.
Thank you. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for all of this. So just to reiterate, you're saying that the board policy was approved by the staff.
Yes,
So they voted on it and the majority got it. Now I think the chance to decide that so not.
yes, a one-year pilot was approved by a vast majority of the faculty.
Okay, great. And then I just noticed a squiggly thing. I noticed that you have the progressive consequences on there twice. Once
Yes,
the-
intention. Yeah.
Great, and then I don't know, but everything's great. The table's great. It's nice to have, this understanding of why these problems need to be remedied in school. I noticed that some of the boxes had, these are the consequences very laid out, and some look like they didn't have all of that down. So maybe that would be, understand that. In
The
one case,
old-
for example, in the theft one, it says that if you're caught, then you just have to return what you're stealing, but you still. But I
That
don't
would
think
be in
that's actually-
addition to progressive discipline. So anything that's in addition to progressive discipline, we included, Sharon. Anything that's just, we will follow progressive discipline, we left without any extra consequences.
It might maybe because it just says explanation, it doesn't say that at the header, so maybe just having.
That's a good suggestion.
Other than that, it's great. I'm glad you have updated it all. It makes a lot of sense. It was very readable. All of the material in the beginning is very useful, so.
Thank you.
I didn't have any changes. I thought, I'm listening to them. I definitely agree with a lot of that they mentioned. But I thought that it was really well done. Formatting and everything. So thank you for all of the did.
Thank you.
It was a lot of work. Well, I do know that I did it a couple of years ago. It's a lot.
Thank you, and I just had a couple of questions myself. I don't know, oh, yeah, Rita, sorry. The policy, I know we have our own homework policy.
So that is yours.
Okay, so I think it's the expectation, just to make sure I'm on that, that you would, they had just adopted ours, or they're looking to provide a recommendation to amend.
So
That's what I wanted to clarify.
So yours is in place and will be followed. And in the middle paragraph, we added. The pilot will be 3 per week per class.
So is the expectation then through the pilot, we'll monitor the success of how that works, and then we'll, I guess, go to this policy subcommittee to say we would like to amend
That's correct.
the homework policy to include language, then we could like vote on it. I just want to make sure.
Absolutely. Yes.
Just talks about how many hours. Doesn't like break down.
Right.
It's
That's
not
the
a
holiday
holiday
rates.
That's what I was.
And I'm saying that, what they're doing is breaking down what classes constitute the amount, so 2 to 3 hours, whatever it is, the
Right.
2 hour.
So it just a general individual homework will average 20 to 40. So that's what I was wondering, if that language will be.
That is still in place. So now the teachers have two guidelines. They have to give an assignment that's 20 to 40 minutes, 3 times a week is the max, maximum for this year, and we will keep you posted on how it's going. And that was very much in reaction to student and family feedback.
Great, thank you, thank you. Your updates throughout the year as that unfolds. The other question I had about behavioral aspect was more, yes, minor in the sense that unit aspects, but it doesn't, I guess, where I'm on page where it talks about the chart. And behavior consequences, it doesn't really like to talk about like special education or if there's like a team chair. So I know that's okay.
To follow.
Is there a place that could be like an asterisk or something to be referenced, like just so that kind of
It's all in one section and it leads into the laws and regulations around special.
okay? So the part, the opening sentence was the following of progressive steps of discipline and degree of consequences to be in proportion to the severity or frequency of the infraction. If at that level, it doesn't
You
give.
would want to say.
I would suggest some language of. However, we can tie it to that, it's just not, you know, it's different sometimes, and there's other considerations.
Right, I think the principal's discretion paragraph covers that. Because the principal's decision making has to be driven by due process, the law,
And maybe that,
and that
maybe that
begins
just adding that language there, which
page
is.
46.
Yeah, so I'm on that,
Yeah.
talk to the intro and the chart.
Yep,
So maybe it could just be where it says discretion, say which is informed by, because it's not discretion alone, one good administrator, there is other aspects to it. That was my feedback, okay, there's a way to kind of add some,
I can play with the language.
yeah, I'd still be approving this way, just actually,
Thank you.
I know it's something that comes up
Absolutely.
separately.
We are so small that every case is personal.
Yes.
There is no, it's not a, you know, thing through next.
No, and then just to back on one of the comments that Hillary raised about the reporting for absences.
Yes.
I think some concern, and this maybe I'm not a person who's a foster parent or in that situation, but I know that there's a lot of background checks and things that need to come into place regarding children that might be right there. And I'm sure there might be a concern that any type of engaging with state on something, there's just a concern maybe it could jeopardize other parallel situation if we foster many children, you know, is there a certain that harm unintendedly consider, and you know, I think it's probably subjective who's reviewing details of the circumstances, but I wonder if that's maybe where some of the concern, I would say that would be the area I would think about it. No, not being in that role, I can't speak to the harm it would be, but I know people who are in that position, who worry about invoke state involvement on a matter that might be resolved in a different way. So
I think that's a very good.
anyway, just wanted to add to that. Any other questions or thoughts?
Can I just add, I love that what you just said about how because it's so small, it is personalized, because I think so much is lost when it's just a set prescribed discipline structure, and just the ability and the time and the care to look at each child and why they're doing what they're doing is so huge. And I appreciate that so much.
Thank you.
So I will go ahead and make a motion that we approve the 2023-2024 Maynard High School handbook with edits to include conforming language regarding the student student SRO. And any other that. Second.
Do we want to incorporate the civics piece, or is that?
Yes.
Is that?
I will do.
Yeah, I didn't do that,
Incorporate
yeah.
the,
I didn't write down all
That's
that.
okay.
I did feedback, so I saw her jotting down
Requirement of the
all of
civics.
those things, so.
And again, it's being done, which is great.
Yes, yes, and thank you so much for all of your, and everyone, I know this is not a one-person show, thank you. Roll call vote, Hillary Griffin,
Yes.
Gary Bradley,
Yes.
Elizabeth Bluto,
Yes.
Laura Hoffman, yes, Natasha Rivera, yes. She passes.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, now we are moving on to the school meal prices for 2023, 2024. And I think this is Wayne.
And just what he's wanting and whatnot. Just to clarify, so lunch is free for all. But we often have kids, especially high school kids, who may want to purchase a second meal. So this sets the pricing for anybody. who may want to purchase.
So this is above and beyond what the state already.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question about that? For that second meal, if a child is qualifies for free and reduced school lunch, do they get the like universal free lunch and then the free and reduced school lunch so they can have two for free, or is it still like max of one free?
One free, but when, I'll stop when Wayne, he goes fully, he does a nice job of explaining, and it.
I assume that was the answer, but I figured I'd ask.
Yeah, that's a good question, that's a great question, that's why we're doing this.
Wayne, the floor is yours.
Hi, everybody. Happy summer.
See ya.
So this is in many ways an academic exercise. As everyone knows, we got the great news that the governor signed into law that school meals or free school meals for all children is permanent in Massachusetts. The last I read, Massachusetts is only one of 8 states in the union that has prioritized children not going hungry to the extent that they have, that they've guaranteed that it's free for everyone. As was alluded to earlier, we are required to increase food prices. And the question comes up, well, if it's free, why do you have to have food prices and why do you have to increase it? It is, again, the first meal is free, even if you're, you know, on the free and reduced. The second meal is paid for along with a la carte items. I have here on this slide, you know, the regulation that requires that we increase the food prices. And it says that the school food authority weighted average price must be greater than or equal to the calculated weighted average price. In general, the thought behind that was when the law went into effect, or in terms of reimbursement, they didn't want the paid price to be so low that the reimbursement or the government portion was carrying the program. They wanted to make sure that the people that could pay did pay, and that it was the majority of their contributions that were funding the programs and not the taxpayers. So currently Maynard's weighted average price is below the DESE calculated minimum. Right now, our weighted average price is about $3.13 versus we need to be at $3.42. So on the next slide. So last year I talked about this. I didn't include this, but I wanted to include some slides, the screenshots to kind of show people that I don't go behind the curtain and consult Mr. Wizard to come up with the prices, that there is a methodology that DESE has set up and how we determine where we are and what the new price will be. It's fairly simple. On this, what this slide shows is that I entered the number of paid lunches, the price, and then it'll calculate the monthly revenue that we get, and it divides it by the number of total paid lunches and comes up with an weighted average price. In our case, it was $3.13. So the next slide talks about how do we determine the adjusted price? And again, there's a tool that they help give us to use to do this. So at $3.13 is where we are. The formula in the tool says that the required price to the nearest penny is $3.42. Now, what this slide shows is we have the ability to optionally to round down to the nearest nickel. So $3.42 becomes $3.40. And so what the slide on the right shows is that is approximately an average increase of 27 cents over our $3.13. Next slide, please. So at $3.40, in order to achieve the $3.40, you adjust the prices in that middle column where it says paid lunch price after you enter your numbers of lunches, and then you will then come out with your average. And to get to the $3.40 average, that's what we came up with for our lunch prices. So that equates to, next slide, please. Here are the current or last year prices. And here are the new prices for Green Meadow. Tried to keep it flat with that being the students at the elementary school. And Fowler would be like a 35-cent increase, and at the high school, a 45-cent increase. So just kind of some concluding thoughts. At the time that I wrote this, it wasn't signed into law, but I said at that time, the legislature passes free lunch for all. These prices do not directly affect students and or parents if you stick to just the first meal. Increases in food service wages, the product, meaning the produce, the grains, the meat, the dairy, etc., and also material prices, paper plates, utensils, those types of things have increased drastically over the past couple of years. Anybody that is not aware of that, I just ask you to look at your own food bill, and you know that that's true. That's unfortunately has spiked significantly over the last 2 or 3 years. And so that's the same thing in the food service business. And so due to constant pressure of rising prices, we will probably be doing this exercise next year. I said that last year when I came before you to ask for your approval. And unfortunately, it was true. We need to. And because we're raising it by the minimum, it's going to go up next year. So I'm going to be back here next year talking about the same thing. I had an end of year. So one more, go back. Yeah. I had a discussion with Whitson's at the end of the year last year. And basically it was Scott talking to me about how their prices of wages have gone way up. We had, I think, an opening at Green Meadow for a while, and there might have been a temporary one at the high school, and they had trouble recruiting, and they had to increase what they were offering potential employees in order to hire. It even put them at risk of, we were guaranteed that we were going to turn a minimum of a $10,000 profit. And they actually approached us about giving them some relief on that, which we didn't. So they had to kind of eat those increases, even though they were guaranteeing us the profit. But that was for that year. And so it was a 1 year only type of thing. And at the time that Scott and I had this discussion, the free lunch for all question was up in the air. And he gave me a briefing that if lunch was free for all, if that was passed, we could break even in terms of revenue and expenses. Without that program, going back to the traditional free reduced paid model, we ran the risk of losing $100,000. And part of that is, as I'm sure all of you have seen in the news, is that with free lunch for all, and the numbers have just spiked. The numbers of people who are students that eat a lunch as opposed to when it was under the free and reduced is significant. And so that difference could cause us to either break even or to lose significant dollars. So I'm hoping that since we do have free lunch for all, that we will not lose money and we will continue to have a profitable program. And then the next slide just talks about what are the nutritional requirements for school lunch. Since I've been here, you know, there have been questions about why can't we have this on the lunch menu? Why can't we have that on the lunch menu? And this I just put in to refer people back that the school lunch program, as I'm sure most of you know, is highly regulated in terms of what the standards are and what we can feed your children. That has changed over time. I think it was under the Obama administration, you know, back in the days of the dinosaurs when I was in high school, you know, we had greasy hamburgers and French fries and, you know, all that good stuff. And we had soda and all of that. And all of that now is a no-no. Next slide. So all students are ensured that they're offered both fruits and vegetables every day. Increase offerings of whole grains and rich foods, only offer fat-free and low-fat milk. Try limit calories based on the age of the children being served to ensure the proper portion size. And I know that has come up. To be quite honest, when I was in high school playing multiple sports, I would probably have to, on today's standards, buy 2 or 3 lunches because you would not fill me up. But we can't help that. We are kind of dictated to in terms of what a portion looks like in terms of size and calories. And that last one, increase the focus on reducing the amounts of saturated fats, trans fats, added sugar, and sodium. As I say in my house, fat tastes good, but when we have growing students, we want to keep them healthy. So we want to reduce that. And I think, Colleen, is my last slide. And again, in my office, Wen is the food service contact. And I also want to say that for Sue Tang being a first-year food service director, I thought she did an admirable job. I know that she got input from students in multiple schools, and she always seemed to be willing to listen and to take their comments under consideration. And whenever I interacted with the food service program, the meals looked very professional. They looked very appetizing. And I think some of the staff got exposed to that when we had some professional development days. And I believe Brian, on a couple of those, had used the food service program to provide the lunch for the staff. And I know they were very happy with the output of the food service people. So with that, I humbly ask that you approve the increase in the food prices.
Wayne, thank you very much for all of that information. Can I ask one question before just going on? Can you remind me what the Winston's contract, when they're, are we up, is this the last year or we have one more year?
I'm sorry, did I hear you're asking when is the contract up with Whitson's?
I just wasn't sure where we were in that cycle for their.
They just finished their first year of a 3-year contract.
Oh, okay, thank you for reminding me. Okay, Hillary, did you have some questions?
I don't really have any questions. I just have a quick one, and I think the answers, I already know the answer is no. But is there, I know on the delayed start days, they can't do real breakfast. Is there any way to do grab and goes on those days, or is logistically and the need to swipe each, we have to document each child who's receiving the free food, right? Okay.
Yes, we do. Yes, yes.
So there can't be any kind of like quick grab and go.
I don't know. You're right, that the documentation, one of the things I call it active counting versus passive counting. I say passive counting is if we put 100 lunches out and I come back later and there's only 25. I say, well, we had 75 people take them, you know, we gave, you know, the DESE does not accept, they want active counting, meaning you physically hand 75 lunches out. So I'm kind of hesitating because I understand where you're going and what the need is. Is there a way that we can do the active counting and get the breakfast to the students in that situation? The short answer is I'd have to talk to Sue. I don't know.
I'm figuring the staff are preoccupied, are busy at that point getting ready for lunch. And it wouldn't work unless it could be the passive counting. And if it can't, it can't. I just figured I'd ask. Otherwise, it sounds good. Thank you.
Mary?
Yeah, oh, should I yell?
I'm going to go.
Thank you for the information. What's going on with the breakfast? Is it just so everybody gets the free lunch, but do we also, is there any change to the breakfast that the kids also get free breakfast or free and reduced for those students?
Mary, I'll have to check on that. I know for sure it's lunch. I'll have to research to see if the governor's bill that she signed, if that also applies to breakfast. I'll have to get back to you on that one.
For some reason, I thought I had heard it was for both.
Yeah, based on press releases, I thought it was both.
I think you're right, Mary. But I can't say definitively. I think you're right too. That's my hunch, but I can check on it and get back to you.
And we'll know though before school starts, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right. And then my other question was with so everybody gets a free lunch, say, we stay on that topic. So the free and reduced students, if they buy a second lunch, is that always at full price or do they get a reduced price for that second meal?
There again, my hunch is you have to pay full price, but I'll have to double check. That's my gut. So again, I'm taking a note and I can get back to you for definitively.
Yeah, they should get a discount, it seems like, for the second one, because otherwise there's no differentiating. But yeah, if you could get back, great.
I would love for there to be a differentiation there, because if the kids start buying, like if high school kids are buying 2 lunches, but free and reduced kids can't, then there's that inequity again.
Thank you. That's all.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, I guess going off the same line of questioning, I guess if there is no free and reduced option for the second lunch or second breakfast, then I don't even understand why someone would sign up just to say that they need free and reduced lunch, because now there isn't an option for that, because everyone's getting a free first meal, but they're paying full price for the second meal. Then I'm wondering what's the point of even signing up if people, so I guess I hope that there is some way that we are reducing the price for kids who need it, but also I'm wondering if it will have implications for us going forward, because we might lose track of who needs help because they're getting free lunch. Maybe they're not going to have an incentive or even know that they should be signing up for free to get reduced lunch.
Yes, we send something out usually about this time, a letter that goes out, and we encourage everyone to fill out the application like it did last year. Said even though it's universally free lunch, it helps us with keeping track with DESE in terms of the categories of people and in terms of our reimbursement. So that's why we encourage people to fill out the application. But usually the biggest hindrance about filling out applications is the social stigma that people say, you know, I don't want to fill it out. I don't want people to know that, you know, I need help with it or whatever. And so every district I've been in, we try and take the approach of saying it helps the district in terms of reimbursement. So we want everyone, regardless of your income status, to fill it out, and then let the people on the back end look at the income and they'll figure it out. So we ask everybody to do it.
What is your response rate usually? What percentage of parents got back to you last year?
I'd have to look. I don't know.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to know if there's a difference between last year and pre-COVID.
Exactly.
I do know applications have been down since COVID,
Yeah. Right.
but also the free reduced, it helps them with their Eversource bill, that helps them with other reduced fees in the school system.
Does it say that in the letter?
Title I, right?
Does,
Yeah.
and then is that letter in many languages?
Yes, it is. And we also still do a direct certification 4 times a year. That captures anyone that the state knows.
Yes, thank you again.
Mhm.
I don't have any extra, thank you for putting this together. Do you happen to know how much we increased it last year? I don't recall.
I can look it up. I don't have the slide set in front of me, but I think it was about the average last year was about 285, and we needed to get to 313. And how much did the actual prices of the meals go up? I'd have to pull my slides from last year and look and see. I have it. I just didn't.
Do the same, so that's okay. That's fine. Thank you.
Anyway, any questions for you? It sounded like, just to make sure, that this is gonna likely be a reoccurring annual exercise that we'll need to continue to do, especially since the cost of food and everything is, you know, ever changing. And that does tend to, or trickle down to, even what we're able to, with our contract with our service provider as well.
I didn't. From where I am, you're breaking in.
Is it this monitoring during the year? Is it every year we'll likely need to vote on rates just because of the, I guess, uncertainty and food costs and all of that? Is that what we're driving with all of that's driving this increase?
Yes, food costs, labor costs, everything going up. I was shocked when Scott from Whitson sat down and gave me a briefing on their cost increase. I kind of knew it was happening when they had trouble filling some open positions here in the district, and they had to increase the amount of money that they were initially offering, and that amount was higher than what they had built in kind of in a calculator when they guaranteed the 10,000. And you know, he wanted relief from that and said, no can do. Because but the people that were on the committee that selected them, part of selecting them was because they did guarantee $10,000. So if you let them out of that, then that might put them back in the same place as say Fresh Picks, for example. So yeah, that is one of the drivers, but the DESE model that I showed you takes that into consideration, and when I use it every year, that average weighted price number goes up.
And then that's what I was also thinking about, is that stipulation of what is owed to the district at the minimum is we still have that guarantee for 2 more years, right?
Now
No.
that was a 1 year.
Year only? Okay. Okay, well, Mara was thinking the same thing. Okay, all right, so that was only a year 1 stipulation. It wasn't built in for year 2 or year 3.
Now,
Okay.
one of the things that they said was, just what happened, that economic things, looking 2 and 3 years down the road, they didn't want to take that risk. That they were only, do the first year. And so, yeah, there is no guarantee for 2 and 3.
Alrighty, anybody else, any other questions? Okay, I will make a motion that we approve the revised lunch prices for 2023-2024 as presented, which is an increase of flour, $3.55, which is an increase of 35 cents, and the high school, $3.85, which is an increase of 45 cents. Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, Lori Griffiths?
Yes.
Yes, Hillary?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Elizabeth?
Yes.
Laura? Yeah. Natasha? Yes. Motion carries.
Can I say one thing? When we send out that update for the fees, I think you did this last year, but can you include that they'll most likely have to go up again next year too, so people aren't caught off guard?
Absolutely. Yep.
Thank you.
Moving on to the calendar update. This is Brian, who wants to speak first?
Yes.
Okay.
So one of the things we did on our summer retreat is really look at all the professional development that we are focused on this year. It's sort of a long list, which I won't read it to you, but we've got the documentation from Meadow, Fowler from high school, and there's a lot of focus areas for us as a district. Everything from advancing UDL work to ready work, to math pilots, to Narcan training, to MAPS growth training, and I could go on. It's just a lot. And one of the things that we sort of, I think several years ago, there were a lot of early release days and they were just there. And they really weren't planned out necessarily as well as they could have been in advance, but they were used. So this year we took the time to really identify what do we want to do and where do we want to do it. And we realized we're a little short. So we realized 2 things. One is we want to do this exercise early so that for the following year, exactly how many days we want. And for this coming year, we are requesting 2 additional early release days in the beginning of the year so that we can really fully utilize things like match growth assessments, which happen early in the year, but we need to be able to train teachers to be able to do that effectively. So the 2 dates that we are requesting as early release dates, which is September 29th and October 20th. And that really just provides combined a few extra hours for teachers and paraprofessionals to be trained in a variety of topics. And I would plan to get this information a little bit earlier so that we have a actually.
Hillary, any questions, thoughts?
I definitely support the increased time. My one question is, I know last year there was a discussion about training on responsive classroom, and some teachers had done the training, but it was sort of partial. They hadn't finished it, or not all of them had taken the training. Was that going to be an option? And then my request is, after we vote on this, can you reach out to the Boys and Girls Club so that they can try to increase their programming on those days so kids aren't forgotten?
So I can reach out to the Boys and Girls Club, yes.
If they offer this half-day programs.
Yes. I'm making a note of it.
Thank you.
Mary?
Yeah. So, Brian, this list is huge. Is it prioritized according to the way it is, or this is a big undertaking?
So this isn't, so the purpose of that was to show you kind of the overview of bits and pieces of everything that we do. We don't do all of it to the fullest extent every year. So like CKLA started last year, so it's a continuation versus not just looking at the following school, for example. The math pilots will be a big emphasis this year because we'll pilot. Continuing, continuing work that's ongoing, so that actually wouldn't necessarily be part of those earlier stages. Whereas other things would, so really one of the purposes was to show you and the community how much we really appreciate this and trying to move things forward. It's not just one or two comments.
Yeah, I just want it to be meaningful, that's all, not, you know, just, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent. And then, and I just had a comment. So May of 2024, we've got 2 early release days. Would those be better utilized like in January, February, because of like, we're talking about the math pilot and that kind of good stuff? Or are they more centered around, I don't know, it just seems like that's late because to Hillary's point, the earlier we can get this in for the teacher, it seems like the more valuable it would be.
You know what, that's a great question, and I think for the following year, I would relook at that.
But where this is already going out.
January, and February is tough because we have so many patients. So I think that was part of the thought process.
But it looks like there's not a lot that, you know, we really don't have. I mean, January, it's just, there's one on the 26th. Yeah, just maybe to consider it next year.
Absolutely.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, no, but it sounds like you're doing is great, that you're planning ahead of time, making sure that you have the data review this. So if it's not to see that it's being thought about, you know, planning accordingly and.
Laura? Thank you.
It sounds like your support, being aware.
Thank you. I have one question as far as, actually 2 questions. One is the opportunity to be included in professional also to be with paraprofessionals. I know that's been a conversation, so are they going to be able to have time, use additional half days for as well?
Yes.
Okay, terrific. And then the other question is just when we talk about reducing a day, you know, how does that occur? Person who wants to understand like education time, like what we have to hit the minimum for a year.
We're within,
We're right.
within our requirements, and honestly, it becomes a bigger issue if I was asking for like multiple days off. This is really, and as an early police, it's an hour and a half of a couple of days, so it's shorter time. But value for teachers.
No, 100%. We want that we're making our routine meaningful, and you're planning. You know, this is really the committee that has been working with the committee has been one of my kudos to Terry Morrison and all those involved. So no, I just those are the 2 questions I had. So thank you very much. Anybody else have any other questions? Okay, and then you said you're going to follow up with the Boys and Girls Club, let them know that updates are happening, and then we'll again just now to the community. Is this something that get a standalone like advised email to the community? Is this before we leave, or like tomorrow? Let them know that there's updates happening for those days, so parents plan on that. All right, so I will go ahead and make a motion to approve and amend the 2023-2024 calendar with the 2 additional early release dates of September 29th and October 20th for professional development as recommended. Okay. Any further discussion? Hillary Griffin,
Yes.
Greg Brown,
Yes.
Elizabeth Dunbar,
Yes.
Laura Harman? Yeah. Natasha Rivera, yes. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And now we are moving on to the, I just, real quick, student representative, I just want to make sure, should we plan on the next? I just want to make sure on the agenda, please, I know that, just,
I will.
yeah.
I'm assuming it's something sure they have.
Right, that is the case, but I don't see it on, I change it, and I just want to make sure I can replace where we're not coming back. And we can, okay, anyway, sorry, I did. Activity fees for 2023-2024 school year.
So actually, this is kind of interesting. It'll be a short presentation because I really want to get to the MSBA and Bill and Chris And let me start with the activity fees. Interestingly enough, we have not raised fees in 20 years. And so, and why I'm like a little weak. As much as transportation has gone up and stipends have gone up and everything has gone up, just the cost of living inflation over 20 years, we've managed to maintain that number since the early 2000s. So that was interesting to me to look back. Colleen and I look back and we're pulling up things in 2001, 2002, and that's where it was. So would I love it to be zero? Yes. And will we always look and continue to work to see if there are opportunities in the future to increase that number? Absolutely, yes. But taking that into perspective that we haven't raised it in that long, I think it's fabulous that we're able to offer as many opportunities to introduce kids for this. For the record, so there is a presentation which I think goes to very similar to the past. And yeah,
I'm sorry. I know, yeah, I know this is so just for level setting.
yes.
This is really continuing on what we current have. And the recommendation is to pick the fiscal year 2024 with this and then revisit it as a cost. Okay, I just want to make sure I understood
Yes.
yeah, just out there. Do we want to go into the presentation or does everyone school committee? I think you've all seen it, but I don't want to see it. And also Fowler, I noticed Fowler is.
That's what we were just bringing, because I thought Fowler,
Fowler
I was
has-
saying Fowler has changed a couple of times.
Fowler does have a smaller, middle school has a different fee.
Pauline's bringing it up,
So I did notice that, but I, right after.
right, so that we can vote on it, correct?
So Mary and Morrow, do you remember, wasn't there an uproar like 5-ish years ago when people were unhappy with sports, certain sports or music or something being cut? And the compromise that the school committee came up with was to raise the sports and activities fees?
Correct. Yep, that's what we're talking about now.
And then they went
Okay.
back down.
Okay.
Grades 6 through 8 is 200 for the first child, 100 for each additional.
So we just need to update the vote.
High school is 400 for the first child, 200 the additional.
Okay, so if I am,
So it's keeping, the recommendation is just to keep it at. Yes.
okay, yeah, make sure it right. It's the. Right here. 200 people in the first of that for Fowler.
Yeah, 6 through 8.
200 for the first. 200 less. Yeah, for the Scott, okay. So with all that in mind, I guess I'm gonna just go, Hillary, did you have any questions on what we? It's hard.
I don't have questions, but I have comments.
Okay.
So I think sports provide a valuable opportunity for physical activity, teamwork, discipline, and personal growth. Imposing fees on financially disadvantaged students who are qualifying for free and reduced school lunch, indicating that their families are struggling to pay for basic needs, deprives these students from the benefits of further perpetuating inequality at a time when we are claiming to prioritize inclusivity. Asking students to apply for a scholarship or a fee waiver, while well-intentioned, can create stigma, making students feel singled out or embarrassed about their financial situation and potentially deter them from taking part in these activities altogether. This counteracts the very purpose of sports, which is to foster a sense of belonging and camaraderie. And I understand that we are in a precarious financial situation, but if we care about inclusivity, I don't think that we can, in good faith, not waive these fees for the most vulnerable students to ensure that all students are able to access the full Maynard public school experience regardless of their income.
So Hillary, can I just ask what you're proposing is to waive fees for students who have enrolled in free and reduced lunch? That's what you're saying?
Yes.
I just want to make sure I'm processing or understanding that just for everyone else.
Currently, those fees are 100 for high school for a student, $50 for each additional high school, $75 for Fowler, $37.50 for the additional Fowler students.
were we able to get some numbers? I know that was the other,
We have 34, according to me, in the business office, we had 34 free and reduced lunch students participate in paying fees. I don't know I don't know how many of those were waived fees.
Right,
Those are
right.
ones paid.
So you have 35 that have enrolled, so is there a process that information, I guess I'm the athletic director, right, would need access to that information? Is that already built in to when someone goes in to pay for school bus?
Yes, it's
Um,
right in correlates with their lunch status.
okay, so they get a reduced fee, and I think Hillary's point is that it's not waived, right? That's the
Well,
difference.
we did have students, a group of students waive, I just did not. That was,
Okay, okay,
And look at,
yeah,
so the caveat, which has always been that those people. That's from participating. You just can't wait on it.
Sorry, I couldn't hear Brian.
But I just, on the screen, it said that no student will be prevented from participating due to financial ability. So, and there are students that ask, they go to the athletic director, they go to the counselor, and they say, things are tight. We don't question it, we absolutely waive it, because we want students to participate.
I get that, but there's the risk and the really significant potential that children aren't going to want to ask that because it's uncomfortable and it alienates them, and they're either not going to participate, or even if they do ask, that they're put through that stress and that anxiety that kids shouldn't have to face. And say half these kids, even if all 35 kids are paying the $100 fee, that's $3,000, assuming half of them are reduced fees, or like assuming they're all paying the reduced fee as opposed to the free lunch fee. Like at a max, it's $3,500, and in practice, given the waivers and the free and reduced differential, it's probably like significantly less than the $3,500. And I feel like if we're going to say that we care about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we can't put kids through the stress and anxiety and feeling humiliated, even if we don't want them to feel humiliated, by asking. Or kids who, like my kid didn't ask to participate in a sport because she thought I couldn't afford it. I could have at the time, but she was 10 and didn't want to ask. And I know that kids feel that way. And I don't think it's right for us to have an activity that's only available to kids who either are comfortable asking for a waiver or whose families can pay for it.
Hillary, so I just want to make sure I'm taking the information. So with the rough calculations, 35 students who enrolled, if they are paying $100, so that would be about $3,500 at the max. We're talking about if they pay the fees, right? So that would be, if we're waiving, it would be $3,500 is what
But
you're.
that's the max. Like, I don't know what percentage of kids with free and reduced school lunch are free versus reduced.
Okay, now I just want to make sure I was understanding the content. And Brian, are you? Do we, I think this is going to be an ongoing conversation, right? Okay, so I think we're all committed to exactly diversity, equity, and inclusion. I mean, I don't know if any of us really are comfortable charging anything. I mean, I don't know if that's fiscally responsible given where we are now, and that we had to lay off teachers as well. So my personal, and I don't know if this would be a thought, the committee would be, let's hold ourselves to, again, another January litmus test. I don't know, to revisit it and make sure the conversation is there. I know it's not, but we can see if there's better opportunities that we can get ahead and communicate this to families. So I know Mike has done a great job in his emails to kind of put things in bold and red, to highlight there are, if you have a hardship, there are, please, do that. Maybe the DEI subcommittee can really give this a little bit more thought. I think that's what we talked about maybe last year as well. And
Yeah, it's like deja vu. We decided this 6 months ago, and 6 months before that, we just keep kicking these kids down the line.
maybe commit to that as a rule in the DEI subcommittee.
So can I just say something about,
Oh, sorry.
Now, so remember that there's the Hall of Fame committee that I'm on, that there is a philanthropist that is part of our committee, that that we didn't receive any requests, and I can tell you that there is at least $3,500 that set aside for this, but we did not receive anything. So maybe it's a case of we don't have to reach out to the students, or to Hillary's point, have them be proactive. But maybe we can have a conversation about, you know, there's this amount of money that has to be used. And I'm thinking that the Hall of Fame would have.
Yeah, let's promote like that as an option, as a
Yeah.
resource, you know, to our, again, I think that's right, the marketing piece, like, I get that it could be a barrier where someone or a family may choose not to but seek that because of whatever, you know, is going on. I personally, I mean, I appreciate it, all appreciate that as well. It's just where we land, for now.
Put pieces together.
So I don't know, I agree, marketing, Mary,
Yeah.
so that, you have feedback or questions, here, I'll just bring it back to you.
Thank you. Okay, so a couple, here's a clarification on the slide here. It says that free reduced lunch for high school is $100. For grades 7 and 8, it's 150. 100/50 for free and reduced, and then for grade 6, it says 75, it's 37.50. Is that accurate?
I think that the 100 is for the first two and
No,
50 is for the second. It's not
No, but
the free and then.
I'm sorry, I said it wrong. But Colleen, you said it was from 6 through 8 was 75, 37.50.
For free and reduced, correct?
So this is not accurate that it's 7 and 8 is 100.
Yes, this slide is, that's something that I missed. The package of development.
So 6 through 8 is 75, 37.50.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
So it's 6 through 8 that is 75 and then 37.50.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
The other thing, just to have a conversation again, last time we talked about this, we looked at the form also. That families get at this sign up. So now my understanding that all of it's on My School Bucks now with no longer through the form. When
We take checks.
you take the form, do you
We
still?
take checks
Okay.
and forms.
Because what,
The registration, I think that, yeah, so Mike has gone online, so that everyone gets a Google, yeah, and he did update, because I have.
Mhm.
That it, there is a section where it actually does emphasize, no, you know, in red. So I know that that was revisited,
so that was something
Yes.
that changed, and that has been changed in the now it's online, so it's even more accessible.
right, so you don't have to, you know, exactly, it's. Send it, you know, discreetly. And then the other part of the school bus was that once you qualify. It automatically has in there the reduced rate, so you don't have to then have to share the situation, and so it's, again, it kind of brings that part was improved.
Okay.
I think it's just more, you know, is,
What do we do? So now, yes, we can look at data and see who's paying, what they're paying, and then kind of play with numbers.
yes,
You-
yes,
And then it's also really agenda for January. We need to look to
yeah, so let's make a data. Decision, right, I think that's what we're looking to do, what is it exactly, based on your data? How many children maybe on reduced actually played sports, you know, what are we talking about here as the scope, and I get Hillary's point, it's just the hurdle. But I'd like to better understand it as opposed to assumptions.
And I think that there is another hurdle that she had alluded to, which is that, you know, the kids aren't reading, that, you know, doesn't make sense, they just talk to their friends, or say. And then they automatically don't, you know, sometimes like even in my students do that, right? So I think that we can talk about.
So the other, is there, do we have a difference between the free people, students and the reduced lunch? We don't, right now. What?
It's one bucket.
Oh, okay, so we can't even say anybody that's getting free lunch gets their fee waived.
Right now, it's just one fee or free and or reduced.
I don't know that. In our.
I was gonna suggest free too. Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that way, and maybe, you know, the reduced is half of what we have, half of what we're showing here. So instead of 150, it's 50 and 25 for the reduced. So I don't know if that's something that you looked at.
All right, so just to bring this home, I think what I'm hearing is that we will be approving or we'll be making a motion that looks to revisit this in January. So we'll be looking at that we're looking at the fees that are on there. Fowler is actually 200 and for one student and additional is 100, right? So I'll be adding that to I do think we need to approve something and move this forward. But I want to make sure that we get more data and bring that space for our conversation again in January. So, any other thoughts before I go ahead and make motion?
Well, the only thing I have to say is I feel like having this conversation, both of the times that we've done already, about getting all the data to make an informed decision. So I would really like us to actually get all the data in January so that we can make a decision.
So maybe again, the DEI, what data?
I think that saying we need data is an adult issue and the kids shouldn't be
But we're
sacrificed for an adult issue.
for the school committee, though, if we're revisiting it, I want to make sure we're clear on who we're asking for more information.
So Colin, if you look at the presentation, it's not, I think it has the data that you're referencing. But maybe you want different data.
Right, let's work that out.
Okay.
In the subcommittee about what it is.
We know what exact data that we
Yeah.
see if it's possible to pull that.
It's definitely helpful,
Okay,
but
but if there's more.
I would also like to know, like, the specific amount of money that we brought in from these free and reduced lunch kids, students, and whether or not that's something that we can find that money for us.
Yeah,
They can,
very.
yeah.
We have a meeting in October, so I'm gonna bring it up. The Hall of Fame does, so we'll have information by January.
Good, great, awesome.
Yeah, because the money is there, it's just, we have to figure out a way to.
The refine conversation.
Yeah. I did have one quick question, yeah, so you don't have to, so last year, this past year, the revenue was 82,000 and the expenses were 130. It's the first year that the expenses have been substantially higher than the revenue and on this chart. Do we know what the reason is?
Yes. Transportation is significantly more expensive than it has been in the past. Yes, but actually, it's really hard to get bus drivers that are at a premium. We do that well. So we provided fan buses for basketball out to Springfield, we provided fan buses across the state for events. Really, it's well worth it.
Yes, no,
I mean,
just understanding.
Great experience for kids to do. It comes at an expense.
And I will say that it is surprising, I guess the revenue collected is lower. Considering we have this access to pay, so it's a surprising element there, that I know we didn't go whole year last year, but we'll need this to be a, we didn't do a football, so that is going on, but anyway, this was a good, so surprising better. All right, I will go ahead and prove that we can the activity fee for FY 24 through the end of this calendar year, as presented, but differentiating Fowler as $200 for student and only $100 for additional sibling. That's okay. Any
Seconded.
any further discussion, Hillary?
Just that I think it's hypocritical and unethical, and I'm really disappointed.
Point taken. Mary, anything else?
Nothing else.
Okay, roll call, Hillary,
Absolutely not.
Mary,
Yes.
Beth,
Yes.
Laura,
Yeah.
Natasha, yes. Thank you, and it was. Anyway, all right, now that everyone's all excited, we will move into the town, or actually, do we want to? MSBA, yes, okay, so without objection, we can do the MSBA presentation. Bill, and I, do want to have been hanging on there,
There he is. Good.
yes.
I'm doing.
You're awake, I love it.
We're awake, we're ready. I'll share my screen. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yeah,
Perfect. So I'm Phil Palumbo. I'm a director with Collier's Project Leaders. We are the towns and the school district's owner's project manager on the Green Meadow Elementary School project. Presenting with me tonight is Chris LeBlanc from Mount Vernon Group Architects, the architectural firm on the project. So the intent with the presentation is to kind of hit the big ticket items relative to the project scope and budget agreement that we're going to request a vote on. And then any questions or comments can go wherever it needs to go. So the first slide here is meant to kind of highlight at a high level the components of the project scope and budget agreement with the MSBA. So first, you have a legal certificate that the MSBA legal counsel has created, and ultimately the town's council has to paste it into their letterhead and sign off on it. And there's a couple components associated with the certificate. One, it indicates or confirming that the town is a legal town in the Commonwealth. The necessary votes required for the project scope and budget agreement were obtained. The project scope and budget agreement is a legally binding agreement, and that the appropriate parties that are authorized to sign off on the agreement have done so. Then the next component is the actual agreement documents, 18-page contract, if you will, that kind of steps through these 8 exhibits: the project scope, project schedule, budget, and what needs to happen from a local vote approval through design, bidding, construction, and closeout. The 8 exhibits, Exhibit A is the total project budget. So when we submitted our schematic design submission in April to the MSBA, you utilize their budget template, and through that budget process, you understand what your total project budget is based off of their reimbursement policies, what the eligible costs are, what the ineligible costs are. And then through that and the reimbursement rate you have, you understand local share versus MSBA share. Exhibit B is the project scope component that speaks about the building design, any green design objectives we're seeking to obtain. So for us, we're going after LEED Gold, and then the space summary template that's kind of steps through all the spaces in the building, their sizes versus what MSBA requires for sizes. Exhibit C, project schedule, essentially just showing the project schedule from successful town vote through design, bidding, construction, and closeout. Exhibit D, cash flow. How do we anticipate that project budget being spent from local vote approval through design, bid, construction, and closeout? Exhibit E, project site. So the proposed site design and all the different site analysis and testing done on that proposed site. So traffic study, geotechnical borings, the geotechnical report, site survey, et cetera, et cetera. Exhibit F, furnishings and equipment. So furniture, equipment, technology, the design that was put forth in the schematic design package, as well as the budget for it. Exhibit G, insurance. The MSBA has insurance requirements for the general contractors that are going to bid on this project. So that document spells out those requirements. And then Exhibit H, the reimbursement rate. So when you guys entered into a feasibility study agreement with the MSBA a couple of years ago, you had a reimbursement rate associated with that agreement. When project teams get to the point where they're submitting their schematic design submission, they reach back out to MSBA. They say, can you reanalyze our reimbursement rate? Because every now and again, your reimbursement rate may grow by 0.5% or 1%, depending on town situations. What happened when we did that, the reimbursement rate we had at feasibility study stayed the same. So that's the 55.63%. Then when you're putting together your schematic design submission, you indicate the incentive points you're going to go after. So For the lead gold design objectives we're going after, we're getting 2 additional reimbursement points. And then based off of the district's maintenance policies that actually get submitted during the eligibility period, an additional 1.13% were added because of that. So adding those 3.13% incentive points, we have a project scope and budget agreement reimbursement rate of 58.76%. So project schedule. So as folks know, last year we went through that feasibility study effort. So educational visioning sessions with the school district and community, existing condition analysis of existing building and site, studying alternative sites in town, other town-owned properties, developing multiple design schemes, ground up, add reno, base repair, understanding building siting on the project site, et cetera, et cetera. From there, getting a vote on a preferred scheme. So we're doing a 2-story ground up scheme. And you, from there, roll into that schematic design phase where you further advance that design, produce a construction cost estimate. Off of that, develop a total project budget and compile that into a schematic design submission. We submitted our schematic design submission in April of this year. It got approved by the MSBA June 21st of this year, as well as the project scope and budget agreement terms. From that point up until a few weeks ago, the MSBA was putting the components of this project scope and budget agreement together. They get it over to us, and we're now in that time frame where we're seeking the appropriate votes to approve the project scope and budget agreement. Tuesday night, we got the select board's approval. We're seeking the school committees tonight, and then on September 5th, we'll have a building committee meeting where we seek their approval. Town meeting scheduled for October 10th, ballot vote November 7th. If the project's locally approved, we'll move on into the rest of design and bidding. That'll kind of go through 2024, start construction late 2024, get the ground up building occupiable so students and staff can move in, Christmas break of 2026. And then from that point through spring, early summer of 2027, complete abatement and demo of the existing building, finish off site work, and then close out of these projects take around a year. So close out around early summer of 2028. With that, I'll hand it over to Chris so he can get into the site and building design.
All right, thanks, Phil. As Phil mentioned, I'm Crystal Blank with Mount Vernon Group Architects. I just want to review with you the site and floor plans and show you some of the renderings of the school. Many people may have already seen those. So this proposed site plan shows the existing not Crow Park, but the existing Green Meadows school site. The existing building is shown in the middle with a dashed line as the perimeter. That will remain in place while the new construction is done. Behind that will be the new 2-story, 90,300 square foot building. From Great Road at the top of the graphic will come in through Tiger Drive. Both vehicular and pedestrian traffic will come in along item number 2. The buses and staff will kind of peel off to the front of the school for drop off and parking, while parent drop off will continue around the back side of the new school towards item number 3. And then everyone will exit back out to Tiger Drive to minimize traffic flow. New parking is slated to be approximately 130 plus or minus parking spaces in the front and to the right side at the bottom of the graphic. There are 2 play areas to the left of the building, items 12 and 7. They're located there as a result of a meeting with the Public Safety Department. They're close, in close proximity to the school, so students do not have to cross any drives to access them. And these play areas also are very visible as you are traveling down Great Road and up Tiger Drive, so they can be easily monitored for security. Once the existing building is once the new school is completed, students will then move over. The existing building will be abated and demolished, and then the general play area at the front will be finished along with some of the parking. Now, one of the things, if you could go back for a minute.
Yeah.
Thank you. So one of the things I just wanted to bring up and just explain is, how we got to locating the building. So we looked at other town properties at the request of the building committee, and the properties that were available and owned by the town all were inadequate for a new ground up scheme building with the parking, the play areas required. So that was one of the things. The district desire to maintain the current campus environment on the existing site was also a factor in choosing this location. One of the key components, obviously, is maintaining the safe occupation of the existing school while the new school is being built. So that kind of set the tone there. And some of the considerations with this site that we also had to look at was at the very start of the project, we were advised that Crow Park was not available for any development. It was to be maintained in the condition it is as a park area. To the right of the new building, existing building on the site, there's some wetlands that we also cannot impede upon. So that was kind of considered. And then to the left of the site, there's a wooded area which is also sloped. And that would make development of that area difficult as well. You know, nobody wants to cut the trees down, et cetera, which certainly makes sense and makes the project very sustainable. That really leaves kind of the logical area behind the existing school to provide a new school and then redevelop the areas that are currently developed with the existing school. Next slide. So the first floor plan is extremely efficient. The central area houses a common core spaces, the gymnasium, cafeteria, kitchen, the administration area, toilet rooms, custodial, kitchen, and music suite. That would be used by the entire school. And then it's flanked by 2 classroom wings. And those classroom wings and core area are joined together by a single corridor. So what makes that very efficient is it makes it very easy for wayfinding for the early childhood class configurations, right? We want to make sure that they're easily found, they're comfortable in their environment. The second floor remains kind of a similar layout, as such that we have the common areas in the middle, the media center, guidance, STE, and art rooms, and then the 2 classroom wings. What this provides is a safe and familiar area or layout as the children go from pre-K and K to first grade, second and third. So as those kids progress through the classes, the school always maintains familiarity, comfortable, and we then identify the different classroom wings and floors with different colors. So students identify their specific, let's say, classroom neighborhood with a color which will work out with the building committee. This also affords isolation of the classroom wings during public events, both on the first and second floor, so that you can lock those rooms off in case of a variety of events, both community or other types of situations that may occur during the school day, before or after hours. So I just want to touch base on the school size a little bit. MSBA, when the town first applies for assistance or partnership with the MSBA, MSBA will review the demographics of the town with the district to determine the appropriate student population for the school, and then that will help determine what the appropriate size would be. We then take, in working with the district, we take that school population of just under 500 students, and we apply that to the district's educational program and determine the appropriate number of classrooms and educational support spaces that need to be included in that overall plan, both first and second floor. We plug all this information into MSBA space summary template, which identifies the various classrooms, support spaces, and appropriate sizes. And that helps determine the overall efficiency of the building. And when we did this, as noted in the schematic design, our building is currently right on target for the appropriate size for the the school population and the program. Next slide. So the next few slides give you an idea of how this building will sit in a completed format on the existing site. So off Great Road, you come in Tiger Drive. Crow Park is maintained to the right. Pedestrians and vehicles will access up and around to the right. As mentioned before, buses and staff will peel off to the left, and then parents will continue around to the right. The main play area or field will be maintained in the front of the school once the existing building's taken down. The next slide kind of shows a more up close version of that. You can see the front of the school has a nice plaza area where buses will drop off, or during school day, parents can come in to access the school or pick up and drop off. It also affords the community a very nice plaza when the school is being used for, after hours or weekend events, community events, recitals, youth sports in the gym. The play areas are off to the right, as you can see here. Next to the school building, students do not have to cross any roads or drives to access it. These areas will be fenced in and protected from vehicular traffic, and they will be very visible to public safety as they're patrolling the area, which will make it a safe environment. You can see here how parents will continue around the back side, and the next slide will show you the rear of the building, how those drives will come around, and parent drop-off will be on the right side of the building. We have a smaller plaza where students can be picked up and dropped off at the beginning and after school program, with additional parking for kitchen, custodial staff, and general staff in general. There will be a portion off the back of this building. There's a little plaza off the cafeteria and gym where we'll have raised planter beds so that students can, as part of their science programs, et cetera, can grow various plants. And then there will be a small player area off the back of the gym as well for PE related or recess events. Next slide. So as Phil mentioned, we're looking to obtain a LEED Gold certification, which would indicate a highly sustainable and efficient building. And some of the various categories and things that we're looking to aim for would be location and transportation. This project will incorporate electrical vehicle charging stations throughout the parking areas. We'll determine that appropriate amount, and we will provide infrastructure for future expansion of that. Site reuse and development. The existing site is being reused, so it makes that a very sustainable feature. And reduce parking footprint. So we have reduced heat island effect as part of that sustainable feature. Also, as part of sustainable sites, we will provide erosion sediment control through various stormwater management systems and water infiltration systems, so that any of the stormwater gets filtrated through underground chambers and retention areas, and it does not get dumped right into the town's storm system without being filtered, et cetera. The school will have a white PVC membrane roof. That also helps reduce the heat island effect. The water efficiency category has low flow plumbing fixtures throughout the school building, drought resistant adaptive plants and vegetation used around the school building, so that's low maintenance for custodians and staff, water meters to measure and kind of calculate water. As part of our sustainable features, we typically include water fountains with bottle fills, and those will also identify how much water is being saved through the bottle fill station, as opposed to just continual bubblers running. Under the energy and atmosphere category, we're looking to capture points on the high performance building system. This building has to meet the latest energy code, stretch code, and opt-in code. So it will be a very highly efficient building, thereby reducing the amount of energy needed to heat and cool that building. We're looking to put on-site renewable energy on the roof at a minimum to capture with solar panels to capture energy and put that back into the building for use, help reduce costs. There is also commissioning of all of our MEP and building envelope systems to make sure that they have been installed and are operating as designed in a most efficient manner. Under the materials and resources category, we typically include a central recycling area within the building so that custodian and staff can easily recycle. It makes it just very easy for the process to separate everything accordingly. And then that goes out to separate dumpsters and recycling pickup. The building materials with improved life cycle impact. So we want to make sure these building materials are low maintenance, have a high life longevity, and particularly for the most part, we try to get as much of those materials within a 500-foot 500-mile radius of the project site. That also helps improve the sustainability of the project. And then we require the contractor to recycle a minimum 90% of the construction materials and demolition waste as part of that. So it's not just ending up in landfills. Indoor environmental quality category, low emitting VOC materials, and then a indoor air quality management plan for the custodian and maintenance staff to continue that process. There will be a complete building flush out prior to occupation to get rid of all the contaminants as much as possible prior to occupying the building. And then through appropriate natural light, window location and placement, size, sufficient daylighting, because as everybody knows, natural daylighting, et cetera, does improve the educational process for children, especially at a younger age. Some of the other sustainable features we're looking to obtain as part of this LEED goal status. Working with Eversource, we'll look to obtain an EUI, which is an energy use intensity of 25 or less. That's a measure of the building trust's annual energy consumption. So these are part of the requirements also for the new energy codes, stretch codes, and opt-in codes. Renewable energy through roof-mounted PV systems at the very minimum. We're also looking at how can we maybe install or provide for either current or future canopies for solar mounting or ground mount systems as we move forward through the project. The plan currently is to make this an all-electric heating system, and that's the plan we're going to go with, the design we're going with, and that happens to include a geothermal heat pump or ground source heat pump system with geothermal wells. So no fossil fuels to be used on this site. The kitchen equipment will be electric, et cetera. And then ultimately, design will comply with the requirements of the energy code, stretch code, and opt-in code. So that will be part of our LEED goal standard.
Thanks, Chris. So to step through the budget, so like I mentioned, at the schematic design level, you go through a construction cost estimate. At the top of the slide here, you'll see through the estimate reconciliation process, we came up with a $66.9 million construction budget. Off of that, you kind of add on top the soft costs required for a project like this: OPM fee, architect and engineering fee, contingency, FF&E, technology, et cetera. Brings you to a total project budget of $83.6 million. When you go through the MSBA budget and their reimbursement caps, et cetera, you develop a MSBA share of 35% or $29.4 million, the lesser of the two of the total money spent on the project, and then the remaining being on the Maynard share, 65%. In the background here, this is a cost per square foot slide of ground up new construction MSBA projects. It shows we escalated our estimate out to the end of 2024. And as you can see, kind of the average escalation pace of these new construction MSBA jobs were right in line with average. As it relates to local tax implications, so the Maynard share, utilizing the number of $54.17 million and coordinating with town's bonding company, they indicated using a 30-year bond at a 5% interest rate would be a conservative way to go about this analysis. You're looking at an increase per $100,000 valuation of $14.65 per month. So a home assessed at $300,000, it'd be $44 per month of an increase. $400,000 assessment, $58.60 per month. $500,000 assessment, $73.20 per month. $600,000 assessment, $88 per month. Again, we heard from the town bonding company that they felt this was a conservative way, and the goal is, if approved, figure out the best borrowing strategies to make sure these numbers decrease. With that, that concludes our presentation. Love to open it up to any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I just wanted to first thank everyone for all of their hard work and putting forward presentations and all the outreach that I know is undertaken. It's been a lot, and I think it's important to recognize that the committee, aside from our vendors, are volunteers. So Mary, you're
but just think there's one, so, before I go around, Hillary, do you have any questions or?
My only question, and this has mostly come from folks in the community who have asked, is can you talk a little bit about the number of geothermal wells that need to be dug and how that number was come up with and what sort of flexibility there is?
Yeah,
Sure.
Chris, you want to take that?
Absolutely, thanks. Good question. So the number of wells, so we'll talk about the initial design. During schematic design, we talk about the systems that need to be put in place and calculate not only the building envelope, but the amount of load on that building, right? How much heating and cooling is going to be required based on the students, the equipment, and the overall building requirements. We then take that load and apply a factor to the amount of wells. And when we talk to the well designer, that load determined that there would be approximately 75 wells at 500 to 600 feet deep. Those wells are typically spaced 25 feet apart. Right now, we're showing one of the possible well fields after the existing building is taken down. Makes it very easy to get in there, drill them. They're under the play areas. Nobody knows. One of the other areas we're kind of exploring in talking with the well designer is just to the right of the well field where you show now. From the turnoff to Tiger Drive towards Fowler, up through towards the wetland on the right side. So we're also looking possibly to get these wells in prior to construction of the new school and prior to demolition of the existing building. That would certainly help in the long run. We have to work out the logistics with the district, the phasing and the schedule of the project. So these are two possible areas, but overall the number will be pretty close to what's there. We'll get a more definitive number as we get deeper into the design and determine all the actual specifics in more detail of the need. But we're pretty confident this is the approximate amount.
I know people have suggested that maybe it's too many. If that were to come up in the process, that can be cut back, right?
Absolutely.
Yep.
So part of the design process, you move forward, there are a number of phases: design development, and then the construction document phase. And through those phases, we continue to develop that design, gaining more information, selecting specific pieces of equipment and everything else. If in fact we determine, or it is determined, that those wells can go from 75 to 70, 65, whatever that appropriate number is, those cost adjustments by reduction or reducing the amount of wells will also be incorporated in the three various estimates that we're going to need to get along the way, and that keep getting update as the progress of the design moves through. So yeah, absolutely. This is our conservative estimate right now that we feel is appropriate. If they decrease, then we'll certainly make that adjustment. We'll certainly continue to report to the building committee and the community through various forums that this is how it's progressing. And you know, we hope that it continues to go in that manner, right?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mary,
Yeah, no,
yep.
words.
Yeah.
I just want to do a shout out to Colliers and to MPG. They have been doing yeoman's work to get us to this point. We also have an amazing committee of very, very smart people, way too many. I shouldn't say too many, an awful lot of engineers. We've got one engineer that actually helped to build 2 schools at Hanson Air Force Base. So he's been phenomenal. We just have so much talent on this committee, and they're all volunteers, as was just mentioned. So we also have Crowley Associates, I think it is, Phil, right, Marty, that has been helping, that helped us to actually get from our original thought of having a gas boiler to, you know, to getting us to the geothermal and the benefits and all of that. We did hear from a number of residents, I won't say an awful lot, but enough. The combination of further education and information from some residents helped us to go in that direction. And I think philosophically, we all knew that that was the direction that we wanted to go. It was just what we keep trying to do is to determine return on investment. You know, we know that this is going to be additional cost on the part of the residents. So we keep trying to balance the cost versus the overall benefit. So that's basically it.
That's
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation and all the work. We've worked so hard to get us to this point. I have, my first question is, I know that when we talked as a large group over at the firehouse, we talked about how there was potentially some money for the state. If we could manage to do more work to make up, to do, for example, the geothermal heating and maybe offset some of the costs, but I'm not sure where we are with that. If there's any more information about whether or not there is some reimbursement from the state, or if we know more, or we're still kind of.
Could someone relay that question again? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if, I know that when we talked as a larger group, the last time I think I saw you two, we were talking about how there was potential for the state to reimburse more to us because we are doing more work to make sure that we are being environment friendly. And that might do some work to offset the cost of the geothermal heating system. So I'm wondering if we have more information about that now, or if we're still kind of in a place where we don't know. If we could.
Yeah, so as it relates to state reimbursement, so MSBA reimbursement, we're currently, so what they've recently done is they've made an update to their green school program policy. So when I was saying we're getting a 2% in additional incentive points for going LEED Gold, that's their green school program policy. The 2% incentive amount is the max you can get. They recently, at the board meeting, this project got its PSBA approval, project scope and budget agreement approval. They updated that policy. The time restriction they put on the MSBA projects as relates to being able to take advantage of the additional reimbursement points associated with that update is such that our project technically doesn't fit within the time frame that we can get it. We are currently going through the process of seeing if they can view the timing of our project scope and budget agreement approval such that, wait a second, these guys put forth the design effort to achieve and be in compliance with these objectives to get these additional reimbursement points. They did it during the design process. They didn't do it post project scope and budget agreement. They should be allowed to get that additional reimbursement points. So that conversation has started. We haven't gotten anything definitive from MSBA yet. So that's state reimbursement. And as I think everybody knows, we're going to go after incentives and rebates from Mass Saves, the Path One program. And we're going to collect any and all IRA rebate monies we can get through the federal program.
All right, thank you. So we have some answers, but not all the answers yet. And it sounds like we're just a little bit before schedule, is what you're saying. The MSBA is going to offer these after us, but we're a little bit earlier than the others. Is that what it is?
Correct. So the way they worded the policy update is such that any projects that are getting their preferred schematic approved post this past June 21st board meeting, you're required to abide by the policy updates, the minimum requirement update that they did. But then also, if you hit those additional points that they have in there, you'll get an additional 4%. We're hitting not only the minimum, but we're hitting the other ones to get you the additional 4%. But we just gotta, and what the other wording as it relates to time restriction is they said, for any projects that have yet to, you already got preferred schematic approval, but you have not yet gotten budget agreement approval, you also can, enter into this update. Unfortunately, we're trying to get them to see us, although it was at the same board meeting that update was made, we actually did the design effort to hit those marks. So we're hoping they see the same perspective we got.
Well, thank you for fighting for that. And my other question is, it's one thing that is kind of nice about Green Meadow now is that it does allow kids to walk into the building. There's a lot of green space that can kind of walk, without crossing any major roads once they get across 117, where there's a crossing guard. I'm wondering why this new design has the roads going all the way around, if it sounded like you were saying something about patrolling and I'm really thinking about that. When you think about the roads going all the way around, I'm just thinking about kids, where they're going to cross that road to get into the building, because they are going to be, so many of them will probably walking. So I'm wondering if you say that, like, if you put the roads there on purpose because you're thinking about patrolling, or if there's something we should think about where we take some of that road out so kids can approach the building without crossing anything.
So I guess, Chris, and you take the answer, but one thing I noticed when you were presenting this rendering, technically this hasn't been updated, right? We made a
Right.
change where this pedestrian walkway, sidewalk, is actually not on this side, but it stays on call it the right side of this entry lane. You continue on and there's going to be a crosswalk here, right? So right when you're
Correct.
done with that crosswalk, your school side. Right, Chris?
Correct. That's correct, though. In addition to that, a couple of things with the perimeter road. So there's a couple of things that the reason for it. There's things in the code that talk about being able to increase the perimeter of the school if you have full perimeter access around the school for public safety and maintenance. But also when we met with public safety and maintenance people, they want a full perimeter access. So fire department wants to be able to access the rear of the building should there be a fire situation. Police wants to be able to access the back of the building, maintenance for deliveries, etc. That is typically the process new schools take. It's a requirement of every community I've worked in. So what we did try to do, and this particular rendering wasn't updated, is minimize the locations for a cross and make sure it's further down the road to where minimal traffic may be encountered. And at that location, it's twofold. If you go to the site plan, Phil. So in that location, you can see how the road comes in, and in this plan, the sidewalk does continue around along the outside to the point where it crosses there. Now, the nice thing about this point is the crossing is close to the school. Most of the traffic via buses and staff have already peeled off, but also it affords a much larger or greater sight line down the road to see traffic coming. One of the things we'll also be incorporating in that is pedestrian signals, right? So if someone's there looking across, they hit the button, there's flashing lights to alert any type of vehicular traffic that there are pedestrians there, similar that you would see on Great Road or any other community crossing now.
All right, thank you for that. I appreciate that information.
You're welcome.
Laura?
Just to add on to that, I was thinking that maybe we would need to have a crossing guard there, but I'm wondering if we don't have a crossing guard that crosses at Fowler, where people go behind the school. So, maybe we will, because the majority of Green Meadow students actually walk with their family, whoever's dropping them off, if they're parking at Crow. So that might be better to have it way up there rather than further down on Tiger Drive. So that's good. And then I also wanted to thank everybody for kind of getting into the more of the nitty-gritty of the impact on taxes. That's really helpful. So thank you very much. I don't have anything else.
So, thank you. I do have a couple of questions and maybe suggestions. For one, just to follow the theme of those who are participating on the committee. I found it quite valuable at, we had our tri-board that there was a slide that had everyone's on a committee and then what their qualification was, it was just like up at the front, like if we could put that in the front, I would strongly suggest that, just because then it kind of gets lost and because there is exactly so many engineers. It was more of just that my mind of how extensive, how many engineers are on this committee. And I don't want to lose sight of that because there are conversations that unfortunately discredit or seem to try to take that away. And I think those are false. But I want to make sure that the community has the awareness of the context of how many qualified people and what their roles are, even a professional are on this committee. So that would be something we could move up to the front. I would suggest that just for the public people who are not as close to this presentation, like seniors or whatever. I was looking at the what happens if we are not approved and just some of those. There are some other areas too that would be lost in this. So like, for instance, I mean, we have to spend money to bring it up to code. We would not be getting air conditioning, you know, or central, like any of those things that are part of this project that would not be included. Like right now, there's Green Meadow has no air conditioning throughout the building. And so I think that's helpful to also emphasize because everyone is aware of the increasing and all of the, you know, the climate change and years and what that does. But failed vote here also means that there's not going to be air conditioning that's going to be potentially an option to, you know, in a I guess a remodeled school. I don't know, that might be helpful to understand, like just to put that in, and also the class sizes I know are going to be impacted because there's a whole bunch of books of DESE updates that are going to be lost in that. The other part too, which I think is just helpful, is that if an upgrade, this allows students to remain in their school right now without having to go to expense on modules or anything like that for a renovation, which would require a really, you know, a lot of disruption and where that happened, you know. So I don't know, just some things to think about that I don't know are always of the minds of people who are stuck on just the sustainability piece. It's not, the project is, I'm very appreciative of the work put into the project on the sustainability. I also want to recognize this is a school that needs to be focused on education, to be also considerate on safety. I don't know if I've heard a lot, but I know that conversations of safety are happening, but I think I heard Jerry mention at the select board meeting the other night that, you know, if he had a thought, adding a member with more safety expertise on the committee would be, and I thought that was fantastic, Jerry, because I think that is really the more imminent concern facing all schools right now. So I would love to hear at some point more about safety. Yeah, I don't know if that would be like how that would work, but that to me is pretty critical to focus on as well. And also, how do we make our school more accessible? You know, and we talk about that right now it's not. So I know everyone is. I would really encourage people to think about, there is no zero, and I can't emphasize this enough, as everyone says, there's no zero cost moving forward. I also wanted to just give a shout out really to Josh Morse. I know he's been online on social media doing his professional role. He's a building commissioner out of town and really knows a lot. He was on Green Meadow, one of the committees before, and I do appreciate his efforts in trying to educate along here. So if I'm looking at the time, we're voting here.
This either, I was going to say either Brian or Jerry could speak to what if we have a no vote. Because I think what you sort of alluded to it, but I think we should talk about it a little bit more in detail.
Can you speak with the audience, like every opportunity?
By, and I don't know if Jerry wants to speak to it or Brian.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
I don't have a problem speaking to that.
Why don't you do that?
So a no vote. So right now, we're in between, we're in line, thanks to Colliers and MVG with the MSBA to receive roughly $30 million from the state to support the building project. A no vote would take us out of the MSBA process. And just so everybody understands, there's no guarantee to get back into the MSBA process. There are schools that do get back in, and there are schools that it takes years and years and years to get back in. What will be difficult for us is that we'll have to bring Green Meadows code. Well, probably before we would get invited back into the MSBA process.
We'll also have to replace systems, because there's gonna be a whole, like, we already have. Like, the units that are already failing.
So a no vote means we would have to bring Green Meadow up to code. And then the base repair for Green Meadow, given all the estimates that Colliers and MVG have done, that's at a cost of roughly $35 million. And that's not with any support from MSBA at that point. That's just Maynard and the town of Maynard having it. That has to do with energy, plumbing, electrical, security, making it EDA compliant, and it's still an old building. So if we look at Green Meadow, what's really not functioning is the infrastructure. The envelope of the building is the envelope of the building, and it's failing too. But the infrastructure of the building needs to be replaced. Right now, we have rooms that don't have functioning unit vents. We have a workaround for the short term. That's not a long-term solution.
Speak a little bit about the assessment of the 7.8. I'm just saying because you've got it down there. And if we spend a third of that in a 3-year period, then we automatically have to go up to. I can speak to them.
Oh, that's just this
Yeah.
building, but we do this with the roof, where if your big maintenance within a 3-year rolling period exceed 30% of the value of a building, you then have to bring it all up to ADA compliance.
Exactly.
And I remember that was a root issue,
the
like
assessment-
every major system, you have to track that, because if it happens within that.
So it's assessed at 7.8 million right now. So figure a third of that, Brian.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's assessed at 7.8 million. The 34.4 code upgrade is approximately $384 per square foot to take the building from 1955 and 1980 building code standard to a 2024 standard. And some of those upgrades are automatically triggered by any renovation that exceeds 30% of the assessed value. So we put ourselves in a position where we may have to upgrade a building that we really don't want to upgrade.
Well, and also we've expensed quite a bit already, so that, I mean, that needs to be added, how much we've already expensed and.
And then costs are going up, so if we do all that, then.
This is for
then we-
now, right? So
That's just like, then we build a building later and then everything's more expensive. Absolutely.
there was a slide earlier, and I think I just wanted to look at where like all the different, plotted out all the different projects that are happening on the MSBA. I just want to make sure we're understanding that. Can you pull that up? It's,
It is slide
Is
number
it-
12.
Is it this one, Natasha?
Well,
no, well, no.
It's like the.
Oh, the cost per square foot one, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and what I wanted to make sure is captured in this, now, please tell me if I'm interpreting this correctly.
Yep.
And where it looks like first, and you can read that on the style, like, oh my gosh, it's fine, but it's looking at a timeline, right, in the projects. This is really how the cost of construction has gone up. And so where the projects that are happening in that area, Green Meadow is actually right in the center. We're not in that time frame. We're not too high. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Can you just, I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sorry, so does this slide intend to demonstrate, and I want to make sure I'm understanding that really the projects that have come through. Is the increase, the costs, how they've increased over time, where that median is and where Green Meadow now, even though it looks high on this chart. But it's really in this time frame. It's within the middle ground. Is that correct?
100%. In the time frame of when this project, if it's approved, is going to go out to bid, because that's what you do when you produce an estimate. You escalate out to bid time, which is end of 2024. Correct. We're right in line with all these other projects that are estimating to go out to bid at that time. The other thing I would highlight that is valuable about this slide is this green line at the bottom. This depicts MSBA's reimbursement cap as it relates to estimated construction costs. So this jump here, this is that jump that the policy change or cap change they made this past December, where they said, okay, the $360 a square foot cap, we're going to move that up to $393 a square foot for building alone. And then on top of that, the eligible abatement costs will go on top of that. And then site cost is at $39 a square foot cap. So, but the moral of the story is, because market conditions are escalating at a much quicker and quicker clip than their cap changes, as time goes and this project doesn't get approved, that delta between the cap and what we're estimated at just grows.
Basically, MSBA hasn't been as responsive as they need to be when it comes to the reimbursement. So that, yes, that window is going to continue to.
Yeah, correct. So 10 years ago, it was common that your you could very much bet that your reimbursement rate, your effective reimbursement rate would be right around 10% below that. But because of these, when I say effective, meaning what you actually get at final audit after they implement all their reimbursement policies. But because of the market conditions and them not kind of keeping up with them, the current average drop from reimbursement rate to effective is 24.36%. We're at 23.76. So it's doubled, and it's probably not going to get much better as the market keeps going and MSBA kind of stays where they're at.
Yes, Mara. No, I can go. Mara has another question, so I'm gonna.
I don't know who necessarily is going to answer this for me, but I had a question on how the marketing for this, for getting this passed, was going. I know that Mary has been at the farmers market, a couple times. I saw Tony there this past weekend, the seniors.
We're going right tomorrow. Yeah, we're going to So we've been working on since I think June, and one of the big things we're doing is on Saturday, August 26th, we're having a community forum actually at Green Meadow, where the presentation will happen by Phil and Chris, and then there'll be tours of Green Meadow to show people. The last time that we did that, people were awestruck at the fact of how much we need this building. So for them to actually see it, sort of like what the fire station did. Yes, we're being at numerous farmers markets, trying to gear toward when there's kid activities going on. We were at the library a couple of Saturdays ago. Jerry, myself, and Jennifer Gaudette met with the Green Meadow PTO. We're going to be at Oktoberfest. There's going to be a townwide mailer being sent out. It was just finalized. So just to update people, every single resident, to let them know about the project. It's pretty much like the trifold. I think that's so we just got permission to be in front of the market basket on Saturday, September 16th. So we're trying to really, get the word out as much as we can.
So how,
Anybody that wants to help.
what is
We also have coffees going on. We've got a number of people that have offered to do coffees, so we're doing that.
So what is the kind of the temperature of what feedback you've heard so far?
It's the first that people have heard of it, and that's why we're trying to do this. Most of it has been, yes, we absolutely need a new elementary school. So that's the people that are being vocal. And in talking to Jeff Morse, because of his social media, he has received a lot of the same. So it's basically just getting people that, it's amazing how many people you talk to that thought that we don't even have to vote, that our feasibility study vote is all that needed to happen. So again, it's just educating people on the town meeting on October 10th, Tuesday, October 10th. And as long as that passes by, if it passes by 2/3 or whichever vote, it has to, if it's going to pass, it has to pass by 2/3 vote. And then the next step is the election on Tuesday, November 7th, which then it's just the for the debt exclusion, and that's just at the polls.
I had a couple more questions. I was wondering. Okay. So just to clarify, I know that there were the stretch codes that were approved by Maynard at our last town meeting. Those are going to be incorporated as that's already been planned and correct. I just want to verify because I know that was something that was raised before, but just to echo, correct, that we're all squared away with planning that.
Yes.
Okay, and the stretch codes that the state, which was what we adopted, but were the state recommendations. The MSBA has not mandated those on projects at this point, right? Is that correct?
So what they did with that green school program policy update in June. So before that update, the minimum requirement you had to do as it relates to sustainable design is you had to be 10% greater of the mass energy code, not the stretch code data, if you will. Their update in June was the minimum requirements are you have to meet the Mass Department of Energy Resources stretch code at a minimum. And then what we're doing is we're meeting the opt-in code, and that gets you 3 additional incentive points.
And I think this will be my last question. It was a long night, but to clarify, when it comes to we are seeking funds in the hope, and this will be the maximum amount that we will have to spend, but we could expense less and we could get, I think what is still yet unknown are those rebates from the federal government, correct? So that when people look at that larger 58 or whatever, $50 million, it's really at the high end.
Correct.
Is it say that it will be only able to go in a lower direction? That is still a possibility?
Oh, yeah. So typically speaking, the budgets that are approved for these MSBA projects are conservative budgets. And at bid time, the winning or low bid is 1% lower than your construction budget or 2% lower. So yeah, we're anticipating we got the right budget. We just got to get it passed.
Okay, right. I just wanted, again, thank you all. And I think I want to echo again the safety piece. I would like to hear more about that at some point. I don't know if that.
We can work with any meeting on that day.
Yeah, I be important to hear more about. That's really all I have. So I think
What did Brian just say in response to your question about the safety piece?
we'll get an update for us about that.
I think it's an overall safety presentation, right? That we're talking about, but.
I think maybe what I'm also thinking of is, I mean, we're talking about how much we're expending for sustainability. I would like to see, is everything being focused solely on sustainability? What are we not exploring with safety aspects that maybe we haven't given more voice to the conversation? You know, are we only doing the minimum? And I'm guessing that's not the case, but I haven't heard what the different options or technology or any of those things, and I don't know how much. But I think that is a really critical piece of the conversation that I would like to hear about. And so whatever suggested form you think that might be, maybe if it's an executive session, I don't know. I just want to make sure that that is something that we get followed up on.
Yep.
I'll talk to Phil. Yep.
Okay, great. So I think right now we're going with, you guys are seeking a vote from us, so if I'm understanding, we are voting to approve the project scope and budget agreement for the construction of the new Green Meadows School as presented.
Second,
Okay, any other further discussion? Okay, roll call vote, Mary Griffiths,
Yes.
Mary Branley,
yes.
Elizabeth Albora,
Yes.
Laura Hogan, Natasha Barron, yes, almost got your names, sorry. All right, motion carries. Thank you all very much and good luck with all your future.
Thank you, Phil and Chris
Thank
again.
you so much.
Thank you guys,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
night.
Thanks, folks.
Have a good night.
Thank you. All right, that's moving on, special town meeting, okay. So I'll give a quick update. The finance committee, went to the finance committee meeting last week, and it was discussed articles for the town that needed to be for the school that related to the school. There are the Green Meadow School is one article. There was discussion about the article for bleachers, and then there was discussion for an article for Greg had suggested that we sponsor an article for the HVAC. And that is relating to the repairs that need to happen with the HVAC system at Fowler. So I think for us, I think we need to discuss that. That seems like a lot for special town meeting. And in speaking with Brian, I know that Brian had looking at all that, put some priorities.
Performance.
Yeah. So I don't know if you wanted to maybe speak about that a little bit, and then that can kind of inform our.
So for the town ones, I know we're putting forth the request for the Green Meadow School building, which seems non-negotiable to me. And I know we have a warrant that we need to put forward for a transfer for HVAC replacement repairs at Fowler. That also is necessary. In talking with the town manager and the athletic director, communicating with W director, all involved in the project. There's understanding that moving the ask to spring is doable and makes a lot of sense in terms of what we're asking of townspeople all at one time. There are plans and options that we can rent bleachers for a little more time. And it's so there's no misunderstanding that it's not that there's not interest in bleachers and not that there's not a need for bleachers. It's a matter of timing. So we really push this athletic season later. And so they were all supportive of it. That's really where we wanted the landing to support that. In terms of the ask, we could still bring on the owner's project manager who would start to do homework, as soon as possible and start to gear up for that ask in terms of messaging and understanding of numbers and understanding what that facility would look like at the time. So that would.
So thank you. And so it sounds like the recommendation would be for us to table that to. The other part I wanted to add, which I found interesting, well, interesting, not really, but that Greg was recommending that it would be 2.5, which was not a number that I had heard before, and it seemed that he was taking that approach based on concern construction, and I'm hesitant to. I don't know if I could ever explain, like to the joking public on where do you get that number? I mean, going from 2 million to 2.5 million is not insignificant. And I think creating that time, that space that we have, yeah, we can explore the options more thoughtfully. You know, I know there's been people who are asking about the why we can't do galvanized. I don't know that, you know, and maybe this, I think the assumption is we go one way. So I think, I'm hoping that this time maybe will allow that exploratory work a little bit, where it doesn't feel like we're rushing and it's uninformed. If we talk about data informed decisions, I don't have any data to show 2.5 for that I would feel supportive of, but 2.5 million is the way to go. I mean, without more information. So would the select board was gonna be sponsoring, the way Brett indicated that it would be a select board that was sponsoring, I think it's just because the large project, so I would propose that the school committee recommend that we delay any article relating to the bleachers to our next annual town meeting. Does that sound? Hillary, how does that sound to you?
Yes, I don't think we have enough information. Like personally, I'm not ready to support a $2.5 million bleacher plan. Based on the information I've seen. That's not to say at some point I wouldn't later, but I think that we're not ready for that yet.
Okay, and I think also, it would also be great if maybe in the interim though, so how do we have an opportunity to take the current bleachers down? You know, because I know that there's a concern with safety and I do see, which is we broke them off, kids go underneath them and it is a work that, now, is there a place where we can tear down? I don't know that
I think there's
involves.
a request to the town. Renovate temporarily, if that's the right word, repair them to an acceptable level.
So we'll talk more about that, I think, because I hadn't heard like that level of what that means, but I think the current state of where they are is not, I think we all agree it's not great.
And the OPM, that's not gonna be a warrant out.
That already passed, so we
Right.
funded, right, that was the spring.
I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah.
So that you can,
Yes,
yeah.
right, so the OPM funding has already been approved for that in the spring, this past spring.
So we can get that going. I think that would actually serve a lot of the.
Right.
If, how, including, if that would start answering a lot of those questions to get us data as a specific.
And also can we engage the CDC a little bit more, so that, you know, as well.
Go back to them, because one of their concerns was that even the work that was done up to this point, that then we're gonna table it for 3 years, so the information won't be, right there, so. Okay, we can go back to them.
So I appreciate, I know this was kind of like a last minute thing, but I do appreciate, working with Greg and Mike to kind of share and deliberate this a little bit. I think the public is I'd have a hard time saying how this would be successful. All right, so Hillary, any other questions? Mary, any?
Nope.
Okay, Beth? Laura? Okay, so I'm gonna make a motion that the school committee recommends delaying any warrant articles or request funding for alumni field bleachers be delayed until the spring 2024 town meeting. Second. Any further discussion?
This isn't so much a discussion, but can we try to create sort of a statement to share with the community, because there is community interest in this, and I don't want them to feel like we started making plans and then shifted gears without sharing.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think me and Brian can,
That's a good idea. We don't want to.
yeah, because I think it's the sports season, people are gonna be, wondering, so I think that'll be great. Thank you, Hillary, for bringing that up, it's very timely.
Yeah, and maybe we could just also include the fact that having 3 asks basically for the schools, I think the amount of money that we're asking the taxpayers to fund, I think is too much.
Well, at once and also without having solid,
Right.
just to be fiscally responsible.
Yeah.
I think he's saying that the fiscal responsibility is a big piece of it is important too.
Yeah, definitely. It is, yeah, I mean, I'm a taxpayer, and I tell you right now, I would vote no if it came to each article, come up at special town or meeting, because it doesn't make sense. Okay.
But it's not that we don't care. We want bleachers and we know it's important. We just want to do it responsibly.
So this is just about the permanent, their temporary conversations are still, you know, about renting, that's all. In play. So did we have it? Did you get a second? Yes. Okay, roll call, Hillary?
Yes.
Laura? I'm sorry, I'm looking at,
Yes.
Larry? Mara? Yes. Natasha? Yes. Okay, motion carries.
Do we have to do something about the HVAC?
Yes, so that is, next, I put it in our folder today, so the HVAC this was something that came up at the end, I know Mary, we talked about it in our budget subcommittee meetings, because it was brought up, and I know Brian had been discussing this through the summer with the town, and so essentially, Fowler Auditorium, Fowler is designated a major emergency shelter, and right now the HVAC is there one area over the auditorium is failing or is part of it. So the cooling needs to be, it's a 2 system, and I love that the wording. I need something that would be great. So the article is in. I don't know if everyone can see.
We can see it now.
Okay, all right, so the language would see if the town will transfer from general stabilization, capital stabilization, or the reserve fund a combined sum of $250,000 towards the emergency repairs and improvements of HVAC systems within Maine public schools. And then just kind of there, I think the sponsor comments will be amended. So that's just kind of a go. Brian, I worked with his team to get some of that information. And I think for our part, we've been asked to sponsor the article. The recommendation, I don't know if anyone has any strong feeling if it's general stabilization or capital. General is the larger, it has I think 1.7 million or something that was referenced. Because of that, I thought it best fit kind of like open. It's because it will come out of a stabilization, it's still going to require 2/3 vote anyway. So adding that, and maybe the finance committee can just, their recommendation will be what we, you know, they're going to have to give their recommendation as well. So we kind of, I don't want us to have to revisit, you know, and change that. We just said general, and then the select board might say, no, we want to use this, you know, and then we'd have to go back and.
Well, and just as a side note, going back to the Green Meadow Elementary School, the feasibility study,
Yeah.
we have received about $482,000 reimbursement from the MSBA. The idea is it came out of general stabilization. The idea is that it's going to go back in again. We're going to make that account over $2 million.
Yeah.
So I know we have to vote on that, but that's that was the idea.
So how, anybody, Hillary, did you have any questions on? I'm sure I left out some pieces, but.
No, but I think it makes sense.
Okay. Mary, any questions, thoughts? And. No, okay, and one thing actually, because I know there was a question, is that this does impact, so it is quite time sensitive as well, right? But because it's 2-unit, so it's not just the AC that getting into the winter. So Brian, the hope is that, just to understand the timeline, secure funding, they'd have to order.
It's not quick. Once we secure funding in several months, and then it'll have to be over, probably over vacation, because they have, you know, up to that. Take a little long to not get the building.
Right.
So we can get funding. Sooner we can get it.
Okay. The
between now and when that happens, like with meeting for that art.
So the building is, it's the auditorium. Administrative area is not functioning all that well, so. It's a,
So you guys are gonna be wearing hats.
we sweat a lot this. But it is important because that's a space that is primarily used for emergency shelter, because that's what the Red Cross can set up. It's that big open space, so we want to get that repaired.
Any other? Okay, so I have a motion that I put together and I also added, if I don't know, this has to obviously go legal or whatever, so I just copied some language from our last article. That just allows me, if there's to amend the article, if there's any legal, whatever, without having to look for a school committee, if that comes up. So I will make a motion that the school committee endorse and sponsor the draft article, for the upcoming town to seek a town vote to transfer from general stabilization or other available funds in the treasury a combined sum of $250,000 towards the emergency repairs and improvements to HVAC systems within public schools, and to authorize the school committee chair to act on behalf of the committee to amend any article that is necessary under the advisement of the legal counsel as to the law of all counties. Any other discussion? No, and then we can amend the comments, and there's several folks just have a look. Share what your thoughts are with that. That'd be great. Okay, we'll call vote. Griffiths,
Yes.
Mary Bradley,
Yes.
Elizabeth O'Hara,
Yes.
Rogan, yes. Natasha Rivera, yes. Okay. I was really thinking hard. Okay, chair's report. I'm gonna just say nothing, and good to see everybody. Sorry, summer's ending. Subcommittee reports. I don't know if anyone has any updates. Elizabeth, anything?
No, I had a question, which is, I wonder if we're getting something about solar panels, some kind of soon, little update on.
Yes.
Okay,
Great, okay.
okay. I think we're trying to remember what we have some more, yeah, we're right, okay, but I know, yeah, I was looking at our prior stuff and excited. Yeah, also more. Mauro, anything?
We have a lot of policies. That separate policies, that's what I'm at. During what should have separate policies to approve policies. We've got.
We'll table them quite a bit.
Yeah. That need to be approved.
Okay. Yeah, I think we should do that, and then maybe before that, we can have a workshop, maybe talking about. That is a special. Public and other stuff.
I couldn't hear what you were saying, Natasha. I heard most of Morrow.
Okay, I'm just saying, yeah, I think it sounds right that we pursue separate meeting just for policies. And that maybe at that point, because it'll be a shorter meeting, maybe we can add a workshop before that. That we can talk about, you know, where we were today, and then maybe our whatever other housekeeping stuff the school committee has unresolved. Does that sound okay?
I still only heard, I didn't hear all of it, but I'm thinking, were you saying it would be a meeting for policies and then a workshop for other school committee stuff not related to policies?
Yes, that's pretty much.
Okay.
Okay, great. So we will maybe work on that. Yeah. And then anything else? Anybody else have any stuff? Okay.
So, thank you, Hillary. I've taken, oh, sorry. I'm now on the safety committee, and Jerry has been, Jerry Colbert has been sending out numerous articles about safety in schools in general and that. So I'd like to ask that we put that as a top priority. The green, and maybe it can be part and parcel, the Green Meadow piece of safety, but also the overall keeping our kids and staff safe.
Yeah, that'd be proactive.
I mean, we just, we had mean, look at just what happened in Hawaii, tornado, I don't know, you know, we've had tornado scares and, so yeah, it's going.
Thank you. I did have one thing I wanted to share that, Peter Campbell will be our son, to the school committee now that, you know, Ken is on those. Yes, and, yeah, so we'll, you know, and then I think, I forget who, Peter and some of the other person will be returning to the budget subcommittee. We have a budget subcommittee
Do next week. don't we?
next week. Yes, yeah, the 23rd, I think, so tomorrow we have our budget subcommittee and then. All right, and it was late, and I would like to round it out, we don't have any
No minutes.
minutes, okay, we'll take everything else anyway, we'll just put all the other stuff for, yep, okay.
Sounds good.
All right, what's the name? All right, so I will entertain a motion that we adjourn,
Nate?
okay? Well, for adjourn,
Yes.
really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dr. Vera, yes. Thank you all very much. Thank you, thank you.